Throws in the flat. Pass is complete to Clayton. First down and then some. Goodbye, Mark Clayton. To the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Oklahoma. Incredible.
This is 365 Sports.
Motion by Oliver. Lucky will go the other way on the option. Pulls it down. Touchdown, Aggies.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
McNabb, straight back. Left side, he's all alone. It's a touchdown. Conrad. A defensive breakdown, and Conrad was all alone. He goes into the end zone for the second touchdown. Nobody was over there.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Maurice Claret is the tailback. Roger Singleton. He's got it. He's got a touchdown.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Hello, end zone. Won't catch it. LaMichael James. And ladies and gentlemen, right now, This young man is a Heisman Trophy candidate.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this rainy. Lots of water in the area where we are. It's a storm that came through here in the last hour or so that's got the Brazos River very high. It was already that way when I was driving downtown for a meeting and just on the way back a minute ago. I hope you've had a great day. Stay safe. I'm David Smoak with Paul Catalina and also with Craig Smoak, and we are here tonight up until 6. Craig, you were looking at the possibility of Baylor football practice at about 4. He may leave at 4. We've got guests lined up. Brian Broaddus on the NFL draft, Sam Kahn and Max Olson on the portal. Of course, our portal coverage brought to you by GXG Elite.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a big brand new indoor facility that is for use on days like this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they still have a way to practice. I don't know what the actual setup will be, but I'm going to go over there and see. It's the last practice before Saturday, and then spring football is over. And I know we haven't made a huge deal out of it because across the country it hasn't been a big deal, but I still want to get a taste of it while I can. Not sure if I'll be able to go on Saturday or not, so this is maybe the last time to even be out there. And by the way, we're on YouTube, so if anybody's trying to drive and watch us, they need more than stay safe. I think everybody who's staying safe is at home watching or at work watching. If you're in these conditions and driving and watching us, then that's get off the roads or put the phone away. So you don't need to stay safe.
Don't stop watching us, but get off the road first.
Yeah, you shouldn't be driving and watching us, so stop driving.
All right.
That's what we're saying. Craig, the way you describe spring football is what I would say. It's like a Dave Matthews concert now, where like in the 90s, huge deal. Now, there's still people who care. But
they're mostly 40 and older.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like
well,
all
I mean,
three of us?
I just want to get out there and get, a little sense of it. I mean, it was good to do that like 2 weeks ago. I think it was when I did it last. And normally I would have been out there twice a week and been out there probably 8 or 9 times at this point, and it's been 1.
Yep.
So I'm going to make it 2 and see if they don't kick me out right when I show up. But I'm going to at least try. And, hey, if they do let me in, then I get to see that new indoor and how all that looks, which I haven't got a full glimpse of yet. So that's kind of what I also want to go.
I took a tour of the Fudge when they had a Jeremy Fudge, David Kay, and all them put us. Brent Ingram took a tour. It's been a long time ago. It is unbelievable. All right, NCAA leaders and whoever else is a part of making decisions, they're idiots, and they are. So yesterday evening, Judge Claudia Wilken of the House settlement versus the NCAA ordered. Related to the House settlement, giving attorneys now 14 days to phase in and grandfather in roster limits, or she will deny the House settlement. Remember, she told them this, Paul and Craig, on April the 7th, made it clear that she will approve the settlement if changes are made to the roster limits. Now, apparently, they weren't listening, or they're as arrogant and stubborn as they were for decades that led to this in the first place. And I don't think she's playing around. And boy, does the NCAA not need to get pissed off, have the judge pissed off at them. She probably is already.
Yeah, I think you're overplaying it a little bit, unless Paul reads it differently than I do. I mean, she definitely didn't agree with everything, and they had kind of been told that to begin with. But I don't think it's like, how dare you walk into my courtroom and act like that? It was more like, this isn't getting passed the way it's set up. If you make these changes, it will get passed to the roster limits. I mean, that's basically the most vanilla way to describe it. Now, could they be digging in their heels? Yeah, sure, but I don't think it's to the point where she's like bringing down the fire and rain on them as though they're,
I think I read it more as a little bit in between, in that one, like, okay, 2 weeks ago she told them to do this, and they haven't done it yet, and she didn't give them a very difficult directive.
No.
It's not like she said, okay, figure out all the money differently. The money was fine. That's the hard part, is the math of that. The roster limit thing is a pretty simple thing. Here, I'll tell you. All right, you want to get to 105, and now what is it, like 125 or whatever it is?
It's right, well, like 130, but
130.
Yeah.
Okay, so you take 130, you develop a 5-year plan, because that's what most eligibility is. You take a 5-year plan, and then each year over the 5 years, you whittle down some until 2030 gets you to 105.
Yeah.
So that's all you do. You know
Well,
how long that took me to do?
Not
Just now.
30 seconds.
So that's what they should have done.
Here
Well, the
are
numbers-
some reactions.
The
Go
number's
ahead.
105 for football.
Yeah.
You said 130.
It
What-
was
what is it
up
now?
it's 105 now. It was 130 up until they changed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and she told them that, and their argument is that it's just it's too hard to do it that way, and yeah, she wants them to like siphon it basically rather than just like chop it. Rather than just chop the head off immediately and then just deal with it as it bleeds out. She wants them to like slowly, gradually do this in terms of the roster limits, not to just totally disrupt and just have hundreds of athletes just suddenly one day passes and then there's 1,000 people that suddenly don't have scholarships. That was her
Thousands.
That was the point of her argument, right? Was that there's going to all of a sudden be all of these athletes with nowhere to go out of nowhere, and that to protect them, it needs to be a more gradual route to the scholarship limit. So yeah, that was her main point.
It was to slowly but surely get to maybe whatever the number is going to be. Here are some quotes in the Ross Dellinger article. The NCAA settlement on hold as judge requests changes on roster limits. We have no choice now in reference to changing the roster concept, which they didn't do, and why she said what she said yesterday and put them back in the timeout corner 14 days. The court will delay denial of final approval to permit the parties to attempt to modify the settlement agreement. That's what she wrote. So that members of the injunctive relief settlement class will not be harmed by the immediate implementation of the roster limits and provisions, those who are in school now. And even she's even discussed maybe a year or two of those in high school now. And then here, one high-ranking college leader told Ross Dellinger, "We are playing chicken with a damn federal judge."
Yeah, I mean, if they choose to do that, and if they do, then guess what? College sports is going to get decimated. They already lose every lawsuit they're a part of for the most part. This one's clear cut. Like, they have no chance to win this lawsuit. So like, that's why I just think we kind of view it a little bit differently, as you're like seeing it as like, oh man, they're in trouble. And like, I don't think they don't know that they're in trouble, but it's not like they're in trouble they can't get out of. All they got to do is just listen to the judge and do it the way she says. But the problem is many of the schools have already started going on as if this has been official. And so there's players getting cut and the thing's not even official yet. So now what happens when you've cut players in the last couple of weeks to get ready for these scholarship limits that you expected to be put in place? Now they're not. Now they're saying, no, you're going to siphon these gradually, trim these rosters so that everybody who's playing now, that's who you've got to worry about in this thing, right? Is the people who are playing now. They're the people she's afraid of are going to get like 2 years of their academic or their athletic careers lopped off. So you need to phase out this current wave of athletes into the new period of where there's this new number limit, not just chop off this huge block to get to the limit right away. So that's the point of it. And so that's what she's fighting back on, is protecting the current student athletes so they didn't get royally screwed by this. And then you eventually get to where you want to go. But she is giving them a very, very easy exit. It's just it's not the exit they want to take.
Chris Kleiman, remember he warned us about this, or what it would be like to tell players who want to be at your school because they want to be at your school, whether walk-ons or not, that they no longer had a spot on the roster, and he had to go through that. Now, this was before the ruling from Judge Wilken, or you have 14 days to get this done. So here is Kansas State defensive coordinator Joe Klanderman, who was meeting with the media, and I don't know if Kleiman, I think he wanted to be the one that spoke for his head coach, when discussing what has been going on over the last few days as they're wrapping up their spring.
It's terrible. It's awful that you have to explain that to them and the kids that really want to be here. Because K-State's a I want to be here place, right? K-State's not a stop along the way. And it's unique that way. And to tell a kid that really wants to be a part of K-State and really wants to be a part of the tradition here and really wants to be a part of the development process that we're doing here, not just physically, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally, the whole deal, to tell him that he can't be a part of that's awful. And I think Coach Kleiman's had some very difficult meetings in the last couple of days. I think he would tell you it's probably the low point of his career to have to do that. And I just think of some of the guys and the impact that they've had on me, and want to help those guys any way that we can. And it's just, I mean, I'm not entitled to all the reasons or the rationale why, but I do see how it affects real people, and I think it stinks. And we're not the only school going through it, and I don't think it's good for the game, and I don't think it's I certainly don't think it's good for Kansas State, because we're not the type of we're a developmental place. I mean, if you take that away from us 5 years ago, you never get to see Brendan Mott, who's the Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year. You don't get to see Austin Moore, who's a 2-time captain. You don't get Jordy Nelson, and those are things that especially at schools like this are gonna hurt things long term.
I reached out to Coach Kleiman and asked him. I didn't get a response from him, and I can understand why. But what happens now to those who you said there was no more room on the roster, with the judge giving them 14 days to make this decision of how they come back on roster limits? Do those players hit the portal now? They have to go find a spot, or are they now in a holding pattern? I don't know what the answer is to that.
Well, I'm sure part of the reason that she wanted to get this done a little quicker is because there is a ticking clock for, a couple of sports right now when it comes to roster. And it's not just roster limits for football. It's roster limits for, like, some are going up, some are coming down, like all the different things. So there's a ticking clock, and they've created a problem here where, again, I don't know, like, how this is supposed to work, but in these situations, if I'm the NCAA and these lawsuits and settlements, I'm always making sure that we have a plan B, at least pretty functionally ready to go, except for maybe minor tweaks, so that if we lose any part of a thing that, on a settlement, that we can just go back through and go, okay, well, all right, what if we switch out this for this? How do you like that? And she can say, okay, well, there's a good framework for it. Just tweak these things and I'll approve it. But that doesn't appear to be how they.
But she's already done that. Everything was okay, but
clearly they didn't have a plan for this.
No.
They were just like, all right, well, yeah. So
these are some of the most well-paid, smartest, dumb people ever. I mean, just the amount of times they go to court and you go like, well, surely they had a plan B. Nope, not really. It's like, what? Yeah, I mean, it boggles your mind that you would think there would be some alternative ready to go. But yeah, I mean, the solution here is simple. Like, as messy as you want to make it sound, or as messy as you think that it might be, I mean, go back to the drawing board, deal with the fact you are going to not have the roster implementation that you thought you were going to have. It's not happening. You're not dropping down to the numbers that you guys proposed months ago. That's not happening right now. That'll happen when these current athletes all lose their eligibility, but that's not what's going to work. So either go figure it out and bring all these athletes back that you've just cut, or, figure that part. I mean, that's going to be the messy part, is figuring out what happens with all the people who've already started looking for new schools or even found new schools. But you go figure that out, bring back everybody, or do whatever you can there. And then you get all your people together and say, all right, when does this start? Like, we've got 5 years or 4 years or 3 years until we start siphoning this off. Mm-hmm. All right. So how do we prepare for that? And that's what you do, because the alternative is there is no alternative, guys. That's what they're going to do. Because it's that, or it's go face the United States government in court. And we know that's not going to go well. So that's their two choices. And we know which choice they're going to make, because it's the only one that's going to keep them in any semblance of what they are right now.
She's a federal judge. She is getting a little bit antsy. She's already given them plenty of time. She's given them the directions, and they didn't listen to her.
She's also a federal judge who's retiring soon, and this is one of the last things she's doing. So throw that just the personal life in there, like, hey, can I get this one done and move on and clear my docket so that I can relax?
Yeah. Okay. So there's that. And yet again, there's confusion. There shouldn't be. It's cut and dried to me. Even if they would have come back to her and said, we'll take out 2 and then 9 and then 16 or whatever, it would have at least been giving in a little bit in a negotiation, and then she could have gone with it however she wants. Now, remember the Madden Maliava and leaving for UCLA to join his brother, Arkansas's NIL collective. Amanda Kristovich, with this yesterday evening, has sent demand letters asking to fulfill buyout clauses. This is according to Front Office Sports and also the sources. AD's comments yesterday was Hunter Yurachek want some money out of this. We talked about this. I don't know if anyone else has done this, but Arkansas is going to at least see what they can get back from players leaving who have signed NIL agreements.
Should we talk about legal issues, or is Greg Sankey going to get pissed off at us? He had actually a comment I agreed with to some extent of how there's lawyers who are actual lawyers and then people who think that they know as much as lawyers who are on social media and on stories like these. They give you their 2 cents, and sometimes it's accurate and sometimes it's not always accurate. And he made a comment about how there are people who are either lawyers or playing lawyers on social media, that certain topics come up, and the next thing he knows, he's got all these ADs who are like showing him their phones and showing him these tweets of what this lawyer said about this certain case, and it doesn't turn out to be anything close to what they were talking about or whatever. So he took a little bit of a shot at the social media folks, but there are a lot of good accounts that do spread a lot of information that's accurate and do shed a lot of good positive light on helping people like myself try and understand this a bit better. I don't just believe it at face value, because I don't believe anything on social media at face value, but there are things that you can pick up that are worthy. And I think one thing that is still not quite clear, and I've seen people go back and forth on this, is how enforceable some of these contracts are, because a contract doesn't just mean it's ironclad. And what other problems do you potentially get in trying to challenge this one way or the other? I guess Arkansas is going to find that out if they don't get their money, but I'm glad that somebody's at least saying, hey, we had an agreement, we signed a contract, and you didn't live up to your terms of the deal, and we want some of what we gave you back. I am highly interested in how this goes, because I think too much momentum has swung one way, and it's about time that the schools, not that I'm like team school by any means, they've gotten theirs for decades, but in this instance, I think the pendulum's too far to the whichever direction you want to point to, the left or the right, and it needs to be somewhere closer to the middle. And so it's been to the left for the last 2-3 years, and deservedly so, but now it needs to kind of trickle back a little bit more to the other side as well. So I think this needs to be challenged, and I'm very interested in how this goes.
Look, if the language is in the contract about you need to play or be on the roster, post spring and in the fall, then I mean, this shouldn't even be.
But I don't know how many are like that.
Yeah, this shouldn't even be controversial.
He signed a 1-year deal. This is Madden, believed to be around $500,000. He was on campus for less than 4 months. Arkansas now prepared to probably try to nibble some of that out of whatever he might have been paid. So there's Arkansas. Texas Tech has had a great offseason, of course, with the portal. They also are about to get a freshman All-American, Cash Cleveland. Crystal ball giving Tech what will be yet another player in their already right now number 1 overall transfer portal class.
I believe this was the player that set off Jordan Seaton's tweet last week.
Yeah, a couple of days ago.
About can't build a true brotherhood anymore because he was on that offensive line. These were the two, key cogs in that machine. They both played well. Again, you're talking about freshman All-American last year in Cash Cleveland, but a nice pickup again for Tech. They continue to load up. Man, this is getting to that. I mean, it's already been there, but if not now, when for Tech, given the way that they have revamped this roster and coaching staff?
Yeah, I mean, he and Cash Cleveland have a relationship that I think goes back to high school, if I'm remembering correctly. So he was talking, I think, in general, but it was mostly about Cash Cleveland is how people took that. So really nice pickup for Tech. It absolutely is if not now, when. I mean, it's not necessarily when you pick up a freshman like you have to win it all next year, but it's all building up to do just that. And, I mean, this is a pickup that will pay off for a couple of years. I mean, they are pouring a lot of money into this year's roster. So, it's a long-term thing, but it must be a short-term thing. I mean, they're not going to run out of it because of who's backing it and all the supporters that they have. So that's the good news. It's not like it's you shoot your shot, and then if that doesn't work, then you're shooting blanks after that. But while they do have a loaded gun, the seasons that all stem from this year, the year after, so long as they're putting in and investing the way they are, the expectations are going to be very, very high, and they should be. You got a multi-million-dollar roster you put together, so other teams like Ohio State or Texas or whoever, they put in similar amounts or same types of acquisitions, what's the expectation? Go win your conference, go make the playoff, bare minimum, right? So, yeah, that should absolutely be what you're expecting as a Tech fan with all that they've done. So, yeah, that's a really nice pickup. Their offensive line was not good last year, hasn't been good really for a while, and they've seemed to have retooled that along with their defensive line and everywhere else that seemingly needed some boost or some additions. They've been a very busy team this offseason, so I'm extremely interested in how they look on the field. I expect they'll be a really good team, but can they live up to now what are going to be very lofty expectations? That'll be the fun of the 2025 season.
Quarterbacks seem to be the ones that demand the most when it comes to the portal. NIL coming out of high school maybe too, but defensive linemen, you never have enough. Even if you do, you don't. And Baylor lost, it appears, entering the transfer portal, Brendan Bett, who is from Ellison High School down in Catalina. He has entered the portal. This is a young man, 6'5", 300-pound, redshirt sophomore. He redshirted last year. He played in a couple of games, which you could, but really didn't. Freshman year, played in 10 games. Big body. This is someone they were counting on. You don't have enough, and when you do, again, you never have enough. And somebody, if they get Brendan Bett, most likely they will. If whatever they give him, it is going to be a nice addition to their roster. But I get, again, he did not play last year and played as a freshman, played quite a bit. So this will be interesting to find out where he ends up.
Yeah, this is not, losing a guy at this position is really tough because these are the ones you're most sought after. So that's somebody they're going to have to replace, or if they can't replace him, they better hope that they have somebody in the roster who can step in, because I think they were kind of relying on him to take the next step into the lineup this year.
So here's a poll question that Andrew can use at some point in time, or a Twitter question for tomorrow. I don't know how to phrase this, so you guys can help out here, but would you be in favor of the Big 12 adopting the SEC rule?
Yes.
Of you can't transfer within the conference?
I think every conference should do that.
I think I like the rule. I don't know if I saw it in more practice, if that my opinion would change, but on the surface, I do like the rule. So Andrew or Garrett or whoever, Paul, whoever's involved, I think that might be a worthy question that people would have an opinion on. But when it comes to Brandon Bett, I was just thinking of that because of Cash Cleveland and just all these moves that you see, and you don't see him in the SEC. But with Brandon Bett, he was academically ineligible last year, guys. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
These are grown men after all. He couldn't make grades, and so that was a big problem last year, which is, you think about it, how bad is it where how often do you hear that in college athletics? Out of thousands of people that we talk about,
not too many,
very rarely.
And part of it is because in the last 20 years, there's been a concerted effort to find different ways to make people productive.
Yeah, so that was an issue. So I don't know. That'll be something the next school has to help him through with, or maybe he's got his head on and he's kicking ass in the classroom now. I don't know, but I know that was an issue last year. And yeah, he was expected to be somebody that stepped up and took a step to a different level as a player and built off of what he was able to flash 2 years ago as a freshman. He's a somewhat local kid, being from the Catalina area, right? So it was kind of a backyard get that you were excited about. And then you had some excitement he was going to turn into a real contributor this year, and he's not, obviously, because he's going to be playing for somebody else. So it dings your depth. It dings one of those names that maybe you thought would be a player that improved for you and helped improve the team. And so that's a bummer, especially when the portal is closing tomorrow.
Yep.
So he got in right at the very end. So now he's scot-free. All you have to do is get in there before it closes. But the timing sucks. And right at the end of spring ball, I don't know why the timing was what it was. I'm sure he'll have some suitors because he had some in high school. But it's not back-breaking news. It's not good news, though.
I reached out to the head coach at Ellison, Coach Cervantz, and just said, hey, what have you heard? And he might give me some stuff that might be off the record, but have not yet heard back from him. But he's a body, and, that's a position. Quarterback one, I'm sure there's some other playmakers, but to me, defensive lineman would be very close to number 2 or 3 on the pecking order, even if you have them.
It's a tree that doesn't bear equal fruit, right? So you can go, to the offensive or defensive lineman tree, and all of them look the same, right? They're all big. They're all strong. And you see that and you pick one and it's like, oh, this is a great one. This is a good tree. And then you keep going to it and you're like, well, not really. It's hard. It's not.
You got to have like 7 or 8. You got to have a tree farm.
Here's the thing. You see the reporting, our old friends over at Sikkim 365, they're in part claiming tampering, which, I mean, that's everywhere all the time, whatever, and I don't think at this point he's shown you fully what he is capable of, but it's all on what he can potentially be. And he did have some good suitors coming out of college. So tampering, I mean, just chalk that up to every transfer basically that's worthwhile. Like that's the case with every single one of them. But I don't know if the grades is still a thing or not, but yeah, they're taking a hit here for sure. And the problem is the answer to all of the questions of, well, what do they do now? Well, they go in the portal and instead of getting like 2 guys, they're going to need 3 guys. Well, guess what every other team in America is going to the portal for right now? Defensive linemen, offensive linemen. What a great time to be an average lineman that jumps in the portal and it's like Missouri State's Randy Jones is in the portal. And this dude's going to get paid based on nothing other than he just plays the right position.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, so it's a sweet time to be one of those guys because everybody wants them. They just need bodies at this point. So do you think you're going to go in there and find a difference maker? Probably not if you're Baylor in this case. So, yeah, this is it's a tough blow. Again, it's not a knockout punch, but they're going to reel a little bit from this, at least in the immediacy of it all.
From all indications, he was their number one guy inside. He was their number one guy inside. A couple of notes. You mentioned a little bit of Craig of people leaving. Here's a guy who put up amazing stats. Terrell Davis from University of Central Oklahoma. He had 109 catches, 1,609 yards, and 15 touchdowns at Central Oklahoma, Division II school. He has committed to play. Well, he's going to stay in Oklahoma, play for Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State.
This is an interesting pickup for them. He's been very productive at the lower level. And, look, we keep hearing, we'll ask Sam and Max about it, about Oklahoma State. I said I wasn't going to back off of my they're coming in last scenario, but man, they might have heard me or something, and they're spending some money.
All right, a couple other notes to add to this, Craig, and you can please follow up. But Garrett Rangel is in the portal, and then Marshall Scott, who covers Oklahoma State. Their quarterback room in Stillwater, at least from his comments. The quarterback room has now thrown a combined 0 passes in college football, with Rangel on his way, has now entered the portal.
Yeah, I mean, they've got some intriguing options. I mean, I thought when Hoss Haney transferred there from TCU that he would, in pretty short order, be a guy there, and I still believe that. I have not kept close tabs on the spring competition. I need to kind of dust off the notebook and start looking around at some videos, though. I think part of it is just that there's been such a lack of importance placed on spring football, as we've talked about ad nauseum, that I haven't been digging around nearly as much because it's like, well, the portal's about to close and your starting nose tackle just jumped in the portal. So anything I've mentioned about that for the last month is now completely negated. And you got to wait for the dust to settle to really, finally know who's on whose roster. So, yeah, now the quarterback room at Oklahoma State has another exit. And, I think Hoss Haney will be a good player. I know they've got, I'm trying to think at this point, Smith, Mailuaki Smith, and I'm probably butchering his name. But they're a very interesting team coming off of last year. I know in the coming weeks we'll start to dig in a bit more because the season's not close, but it's also not nearly as far off as it felt maybe a few weeks ago. So we're about to enter that summer period here pretty soon and getting into previews and all of that. And Oklahoma State, I can listen to you say they're going to make a huge jump up and be in like the top mix and be like one of the top 5 teams in the league somehow. I could at least listen to you and see your case for a big bounce back. And I could also see Paul, who's like, I'm putting them at number 16 out of 16 because I don't believe that they've much improved from last year. I don't know on them right now, but I do think they've been very active in the portal and they've been showing some urgency, which I think is good. But yeah, the quarterback position, I'm very interested in where that lands.
Well, Max and Sam might be able to help us out with that. So those are some of the stories. There's a couple of others we'll get to a little bit later in the show. We have Sam Kahn. That's what he does. He covers the portal movement, what it means, his thoughts. It's about to wrap up as far as the entry deadline tomorrow. Basketball was Wednesday. We are on until 6. We have Brian Broaddus. We have Matt Norlander, Max, and also Sam.
Yeah, and Smith, who I mentioned, he was in the other portal. I couldn't remember if it was him or Zane Flores. So Zane Flores and Haas Haney are all they have now. So Smith is in there now. So they have 2 quarterbacks. So guess who's going to go dip into the portal?
Yep.
While everybody's searching for D lineman, Oklahoma State. So I'm interested, who can they go get? Who's out there right now?
Zane Flores was initially a guy that Nebraska had committed to him, and he ended up going to Oklahoma State, played just a tad or two. Wet Blanket, I'm sure, can give us all that. When we come back, can't wait to hear Sam Kahn. And I've got a story about Sam and his focus on the portal. That's next. This is, and we appreciate your time, 365 Sports.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist's office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Right now at Bird Collision Ford, we're bringing you an offer that's as big as America. Employee pricing for everyone. You pay what they pay. That means you drive home a new Ford F-150, Bronco Sport, Expedition, Super Duty. From America, for America. Employee pricing for everyone at BK Ford. Looking to sell your vehicle? Get top dollar for yours today. Don't miss out. Employee pricing is available for a limited time. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Experience better at BK Ford.
I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
I reached out to Sam Kahn, I think it was sometime on Sunday, to ask him. I'd been traveling, so I asked him about, okay, what happens to the quarterback Aguilar at UCLA, and where's he going to end up? And he said, we got a couple stories out. And then I said, my God, do you get a chance to breathe? It was Sunday, it was Easter Sunday, and here I am pestering him. He said, quote, I was on my phone in the car this morning on my way to church, and my wife asked me, when does the portal close?
Friday.
Were you? Friday, yeah. It's
a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. It was, Easter Sunday, and, it's a long weekend too, right? Because you have Good Friday and then some people have Monday off. And traditionally, before I stepped into this job, that would have been a weekend that I would have been, hey, we're going to chill. We're going to dial it back a little bit, especially too because you don't really have a lot of you have some spring games going on, but not a ton. And yeah, it was portal open all weekend, so it's work weekend for me. And so yeah, it was quite the moment because I could just tell, I'm on the phone and I'm checking through things and texting people, and she's like, "When's the portal close?" And I was like, "Friday." So the answer is Friday for undergraduates, for graduate transfers. Unless you have a head coaching change from here on out, it closes tomorrow. So,
but that just means that you can stop looking to see who's going in. You still have to follow where they're going.
Correct. And also that's for immediate eligibility. I mean, I suppose people could still get in after this, but they won't necessarily be eligible this year. So if you want to play this fall, then you got to get in by midnight Friday. And that does not count the 48-hour lag time, because once the player notifies the school that they intend to transfer, they have up to 48 hours to enter their name in. So you could see some stragglers trickle in Saturday or Sunday as compliance departments put them in. But I would imagine that by tomorrow night, we're going to be pretty close to done. Hopefully.
Oklahoma State, Rangel's in the portal. We just mentioned this. Craig mentioned they have Haas Haney from TCU. But they don't have a player on their roster right now that has thrown a pass at the college level. That was a note from someone that covers Oklahoma State. Whether I didn't know whether or not Haney had thrown, but that's the note. Is Haney the guy? Is that the only one, or you think they're still looking?
Yeah, I think when Doug Meacham got that job, and I know he said when he got the job that he's not going to play favorites or anything, but you have to think that the familiarity that Haas Haney has with the offense that they ran at TCU, Doug Meacham's involvement in that offense, the last, decade he's been there essentially at TCU. I'd be hard pressed to think anybody other than him is going to be the favorite. Certainly Oklahoma ponied up to go get Haas Haney, and he's a superb talent. He's really athletic. Anybody who watched him at Aledo, watched him win a state championship, knows how talented he is. He can the thing is, he's small in terms of height, but he can really throw the football. Like I remember watching him when he was going into his senior year at the Elite 11 Regional in Austin, and you watched him line up with DJ Lagway or maybe Mettauer and all these other guys who were highly regarded, even Will Hammond at Texas Tech. And Haas Haney, in my opinion, threw the best ball out of all those guys that day. And to be able to drive the ball that he can at his frame and also have the speed and athleticism that he does. He's a 10-600 guy, or was in high school. He's a tremendous athlete. So if they go to him, I'm optimistic. There'll be some freshman growing pains for sure. I mean, he was swimming a little bit last year, learning everything at TCU, but I think once he settles in, I think he's got a really, really bright future in Stillwater.
Any particular thoughts on how aggressive and some of the moves that Mike Gundy and company have made, Sam, off of last year's disappointment? It feels like they kind of got a kick in the pants, and they know, like, hey, man, we gotta produce here. So what have you thought of what you've seen that they've done this offseason?
Yeah, no doubt. I like some of their portal takes. They're not going to be the program that's going to outbid people. And I think Mike Gundy has made that clear in the past, and that certainly reflects in their portal shopping. But I like some of the under radar guys they got. You guys were talking about Terrell Davis, the guy from Central Oklahoma. I was talking to a couple other personnel directors about him right before the portal opened. He was a guy who was really intriguing, who really broke out over there. And I think some schools were interested in him even the previous cycle, and Central Oklahoma somehow was able to keep him. Don't ask me how a lower division program is able to cobble the NIL funds to keep somebody, but they were. And so, but he ended up getting in this time, and I think that was a good pickup. Cam Abshire, who's a Division II guy from Emory and Henry, really, really productive at that level. So that's kind of the Mike Gundy way, right? Even when he was in high school recruiting and doing that heavily, he was able to find these off-the-radar guys. He would go to Canada and go find some underrated player and put him in the system, and then they turn out to be really good players. I think they're using that same philosophy in the portal, and I'm fascinated to see how it plays out.
Sam, Texas has cleaned up along the defensive line. I mean, they got the kid from Syracuse, the Maryland kid. They seem to kind of do that all the time now. They need a kick returner, though. Do you think that they will find that in Keelan Marion or someone like that, or is that going to be kind of their issue?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something you have enough athletes and the type of athletes they have. I don't know that necessarily is something you have to go get. I mean, they did that before when they went and got Silas Bolden the year before, and he played more of a role in the punt return game. But I think they are a team that has enough athletes on that team that if you don't necessarily find somebody specifically that fits your profile in the portal, that they've got enough players to go stick in one of those positions. Now, a kick return job is a lot easier than a punt return job. The kick return job, you've got some room to run. The punt return job, you're putting your Adam's apple up and exposing it for the world, and you might get hit. And that takes a different breed to do that. So, but I don't really. Could it be an issue? Possibly, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be a huge issue. I think the one thing that stuck out to me with them, on top of the impact players that they got, you mentioned the defensive lineman, Jack Andrews, the tight end from Cal, Emmett Mosley, the freshman receiver from Stanford, who was really good. The thing that I thought was really important is they got a kicker. They went and got Mason Shipley from Texas State, who's really, really good. Bert Auburn, who had been really good for them for a couple years, kind of fell off last year. His accuracy wasn't quite there. We saw all the missed kicks late in the season, particularly in the Peach Bowl, which were really, really rough. Them being able to go get somebody who is really good at place kicking, I think is huge, because that can determine a ball game for you, an SEC game. It can determine a playoff game. And so getting somebody that's a really, really good and really, really proficient and really, really accurate, I think was really important. So getting a guy like Shipley, I think, was really big for them.
Here we are towards the end of spring ball, and all of a sudden I see A.J. Halsey has entered the transfer portal, and I was like, damn, Houston. I mean, one of their better players last year, without a doubt. Just how much of a kick in the you-know-whats was that, Sam? How unexpected. I mean, it's not a surprise people came after him, but just the timing of it. And I saw Ole Miss is in contact with him, amongst others. What have you kind of heard there on A.J. Halsey?
Yeah, it's really tough, and it came right at the end of the spring game too. I think, I don't remember if the report came out during the spring game, but I know as soon as the game was over, he announced he was going to the portal. And that's a guy, an all Big 12 talent, somebody who they went and got in the portal a couple years ago out of New Mexico, who had a really, really good freshman season, and this is the kind of player that they're trying to get. So definitely a kick in the pants for them. Highly sought after. There's a lot of suitors in that one for sure, just because of the caliber player he is. He's definitely going to cost at this point in the spring portal. Guys, when you're looking for somebody, if you're especially coming across a premium talent, you're going to overpay a little bit. So definitely tough. But I would say overall, they fared pretty well in the spring portal, even though they're losing Halsey. I love some of their pickups. You know, they got the tight end from Wisconsin, who was at Ball State. Tanner Koziol was a really good one. They got the linebacker from Tulane today. I believe he committed. They have done a really sneaky good job, both in the winter and the spring portal. I love the way they've kind of shored up. They redid the entire offense in the winter. They got 5 new offensive linemen. They got 2 new receivers. They got a new quarterback. And now you add in, they got a tight end in the winter, and now they got a tight end now. So they've really retooled that whole offense, which it was, I think, the 133rd ranked offense in the country scoring wise. So there's really nowhere to go but up. But I thought they did a good job of addressing a lot of needs.
Have you heard much about where Marion at BYU and Taggart, the linebacker, might end up? Marion is a great special teams returner. And also, they thought we had BYU's Mitch Harper on and Kalani Sitake yesterday. I just love the way Kalani handled even the topic of this of the portal. But have you heard much about them? How much in demand are they?
No, I haven't heard. I haven't checked around on them as much. But I do know. I mean, again, at this time of year, there's going to be a lot of demand for anything because teams are trying to fill needs at this point. So, it's going to be one of those things where if you got a need, you really got a few weeks to fill it here because you got to get guys enrolled before the summer school starts in June.
Sam Cohn with us, theathletic.com, Thursdays around 3:30.
Sam, with the House settlement and now the roster limits thing being now ordered to be phased in, and I guess they'll figure that out now, even though they should have done it, April 8th, the day after she told them to. What have you heard from coaches about how they're navigating that situation, because it's hard. Like, here's the thing. They're going to wind up phasing these guys in, and some of them they're going to tell to go get in the portal. And then will they have time to be able to no, you can stay now, but it just seems so strange.
It is, and it's frustrating. I talked to a lot of coaches about this right before the portal opened because I wanted to know, hey, how are you handling this? because you don't know if the roster limit's going to be installed this year or if they're going to phase in, because Wilken brought up that issue. I think it was about really 8-9 days before the portal opened. So it would really put coaches in a tough spot. And I think different coaches have handled differently. Some of them already let their players know, even as far back as the winter. I talked to some coaches who told their players in December of last year, hey, if we're going to do a 105 this year, you're not going to make it, because they wanted to give their guys a chance to get in the winter portal. Then you had some guys who have told them either going into spring or in spring practice, hey, you're on the bubble. You may not make it. You may make it. If we're going to have 105, you may not make it. But if we're going to be able to keep more than 105 and phase it in, then you'll be able to be here. And you have some, and I haven't, nobody's told me this, that they've done it, but I've heard other coaches accuse other programs of saying, well, they're not telling their guys anything until they know for sure. And if they get left out in the cold, then so be it, which not the best way to handle this thing. But I do think it creates a challenge because the portal closes on Friday. And so if you're a player and then you find out that you do not have a spot, then it's a problem. But with Wilken taking this hard stand on the roster limits being phased in, it seems to me that I think we're going to get to a place where the walk-ons who have not been told to go elsewhere are going to be able to hang on to their spot. And I think that's a good thing. I understand the stance that the NCAA has and the programs have, but I think her request is pretty sensible. And I cannot imagine, I would be really surprised if they would be willing to tank the settlement over this. I think phasing in roster limits for however many you have over 105 at this point to allow your currently eligible walk-ons to stay on, I think it's sensible. And I don't think they're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater on this, because if you do and you're going to trial, it's going to open up a whole other can of worms, not to mention the fact that so many programs have already started to plan to pay out revenue sharing and written contracts to say, this is what we're going to pay you when revenue sharing comes into effect. So you already have all this in motion. So it better happen, because if it doesn't, then we're going to have a whole nother issue to deal with.
Yeah, and it's kind of refreshing as business-minded as everybody is these days. This is actually like a personal thing. Like the people are going to benefit from this. The students or the athletes are going to benefit from this. It's not just like, get them out of the way so we can make more money and streamline this thing. That was kind of refreshing, although we all want the court cases to go away, of course. Texas Tech, they just more Cash Cleveland now coming over from Colorado. And I saw some talk about like him bolstering them, not just for this year, but obviously, a couple more seasons. So any thoughts on that pickup that came down, I guess, earlier today?
I mean, the money well's not going dry over there anytime soon, I suppose. If you're Cody Campbell, man, the world's your oyster. So when they picked up all the transfer offensive linemen they did in the winter, certainly you had some guys go in that were at Tech that were younger guys or guys that thought maybe they were in line to play, and then Tech goes and gets some transfers, and now all of a sudden you're like, well, maybe I'm going to go find a new home because I may not be playing as much as I thought. And so that creates a little bit of a depth issue. And so Texas Tech smartly is going to go try to find some younger offensive linemen that can be guys that maybe they can sell them on, hey, you fight for a spot now, even if you don't start, maybe you're rotational, but you're here for the long term. And we know they got the money, so they'll be able to pay them. But I think it's also a deal of, hey, let's make sure that we have a solid foundation. Because what they don't want to do, and I don't think any program can survive this way, is you don't want to be portaling a new offensive line every year. That's not sustainable. It's hard to do. I think you can do it one time. Maybe you can get away with it a second time. But at some point, that position is a developmental position that you have to recruit, develop, and retain. If you notice, the programs that are winning national championships, competing deep in the playoff, they are not portaling in entire offensive line. Maybe they're getting one. I think about a program like Texas. I don't know that they had a single portal guy on their offensive line last year. All their guys were developmental guys.
I saw an article, in fact, that they have not brought in an offensive lineman through the portal since 21 when Sarkisian arrived. And that's about the time when they started to load up.
Before that, they were kind of
for
messy,
whatever reason, they went about almost a decade or so, with they had a couple of guys, Cosme or a few others, but they just they had some highly ranked. Sometimes you wondered, because they committed to Texas, but they just were a mess on the offensive line. No question.
Yeah. It was. I think they haven't had a first round pick at that position, I believe, since 2002, up until Kelvin Banks, which there'll be a first round pick likely tonight. But it's been 22 years since they had a first round pick at the offensive line position. And then I think they went from about 2007 to 2021 with only 2 linemen drafted, period. I mean, that's when you think about the program that Texas is and the caliber of player they attract or can attract, it's incredible. And it underscores why they were so bad throughout the 2010s, because they were really bad in the trenches. And now when they fix that part in 2022, 23, 24, all of a sudden they're a playoff team and they're a national championship contender again. It's kind of funny how that works.
Sam, Paul brought up the roster spots and how the leaders of, if you want to call them that, of the NCAA and college football have to go back to Judge Wilken with something. But how dumb are they? How dumb are they? Yeah, they're trying to, but this is not surprise me, but this is a little dangerous. They're not going to eventually want to go to court. They don't want to go to a jury. But how arrogant was what they did and what Judge Wilken wasn't happy with?
Yeah, because the thing is when they had the settlement here on an April 7th, and granted, it was 7-8 hours. I did not watch all 7-8 hours on it. I watched a chunk of it. But Claudia Wilken was very clear about how important to her the idea of players losing their opportunities was. And she made that very clear time and time again on April 7th. And so when she gave the parties a chance to come back with a brief within 2 weeks, and they come back with no change to the roster limits, I was pretty surprised. I thought they would come back and say, okay, we'll grandfather in, or we'll cook up some kind of response to tweak it so that we address that concern. They didn't address that concern at all, which to me seemed like her biggest sticking point. And so she pretty much put the hammer down and was like, look, either you fix this or we're denying the settlement. And that's a pretty hard red line she drew in the sand there. So I think it's pretty clear, but you're right. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I'm an NCAA lawyer or I know anything about legal advice, but you would have thought that you could get the message that she sent on April 7th that, hey, we do not want to rob the kids who are already enrolled of their current opportunities and kick them off the teams. And I don't think that's that hard to figure out. And it's not even a cost issue because you're talking about walk-ons. These are not players that are on scholarship, so to speak. I mean, there are some costs involved in feeding them and maybe travel and equipment and things like that, but we're not talking about tens of thousands of dollars in scholarship costs for these players. These are players that are walk-ons that are paying their own way. Maybe in some cases at some schools are getting NIL money, but to me, it was a slam dunk to figure that out. And so now she's really put the onus on them to either fix it or we're going to go to trial.
Yeah, I came up with a plan at the beginning of the show in like 30 seconds. So obviously it's not that hard, Sam. I mean, obviously there'd have to be some work on it, but that's what if I were them, I'd been like, hey, figure this out money-wise. We'll just reduce it by 6 every year until 2030 or whatever it is, and then that way you can grandfather it in like she wanted. We have not talked about Nico in this interview, and we're not going to, but I do want to ask you about what you think about Joey Aguilar's fit in that offense. He was with Tito Sunseri, looked like reports were that he was kind of picking it up well. Now he has to kind of learn a whole new thing. But that offense is pretty quarterback friendly.
It is. I mean, you guys have seen it up close and personal. You don't need Joe Montana to run that thing, but he's a guy who can throw it. He's a dual threat. He can run it. I know a lot of people have looked at his interception numbers from last year, talking to people who kind of know and followed that team. It seemed like they asked him to drop back pass a lot more than they did the year before. I think this offense will be a little bit more friendly to him and his skill set. And to me, this is going to be a fascinating Tennessee season to follow, and particularly because of him. I'm not going to say he's going to be this caliber of players, so to speak, but could he be their Diego Pavia, so to speak? Which would be a little bit fitting because Diego Pavia is the reason Joey Aguilar is still going to play, because he got the extra year of eligibility from the blanket waiver from the Diego Pavia lawsuit. But going from the group of 5 to the SEC, which is what Diego did, could he be a really good fit and help Tennessee in a big way? I think so. You're certainly better off putting a guy with 25 starts out there than you are with 2 former 4-star recruits who have 9 combined pass attempts between them. And that's no offense to the 2 guys they got. I think they're both former 4-star recruits for a reason. They'll probably be really good. But if you have sights on contending for a playoff spot, you want to have somebody who's got some experience in there. And so he is going to be a fascinating story to watch because he is the guy who got impacted by this by no fault of his own. He ended up at UCLA to take advantage of his last year to go back to his home state. He's from California, so he wanted to go back to his home state and give it a try at the Power 4 level. Then Nico comes in and, he ends up at Tennessee. And so I think he's going to have a lot of people rooting for him this year and that are kind of rooting for Tennessee just to see how that plays out because of the saga that led him there and all the different things. And again, I think we all like underdog stories, and he is an underdog story. He didn't really seem to get recruited much out of high school. He went junior college for 2 years, went to App State, and then ended up at UCLA before the Nico thing happened. So I'm fascinated to learn more about him and to see how it plays out. But I think Heupel and Joey Hazel, I think they'll be smart. They're not going to overload him. They're going to let him get to know his teammates and eat up that playbook this summer. And I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch how it plays out this fall.
Sam, thank you, buddy. By the way, if you get a chance this weekend, I mean this because you're good to us. We appreciate it. If you have a chance to take your wife out to dinner, let me know where you're going. I'll give you an e-card for part of your dinner or whatever it will be, like $100. How about that?
Hell yeah.
No, seriously.
I'm down with that.
I mean that. You're good to us, man.
Sam, go to
no, don't go to
go to the
Taste of Texas, baby.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. You're
$100.
You're in Houston, right? Go to the Pappas Brothers Steakhouse.
Yeah, there's a good
one. Man, I haven't been to Pappas Brothers in a long time.
Yeah,
100 might not even cover me at Pappas.
A glass of tea and a roll. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, y'all. Y'all take care.
You, Sam. By the way, Michael McCann, did you have the Kim Coulter thing, Gary?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
All right. Michael McCann from McCann Sports Law mentioned as far as what Judge Wilken doing last night. One thing he did mention, if she was to reject the House settlement, that rejection cannot be appealed. It's her call. In contrast, her approving the settlement can be appealed by the Ninth Circuit Court. So there are some, if she approves it, that you can get it appealed. But if she says no, it cannot be appealed. So there's a lot of other legal things tied into this. The fix straightforward, Paul, this is pretty much what you said. To save their roster spots, fundamentally unfair and essentially a design defect. Don't allow current players to lose their roster spots due to the settlement imposed roster limits. If the NCAA and member institutions aren't willing to make that concession, it would suggest they have mixed feelings about the settlement itself and are actually willing to walk away. So there's a couple of notes from a guy that does a great job, along with so many others, in covering the House settlement and also sports law. When we come back, Craig's about to head over to watch some practice.
Here's your super chat.
Here it is. Kim Coulter, thank you. Sam Kahn, Max Olson, back-to-back, good friends too. Makes for my second favorite day on 365 Sports. Thank you. And then we'll get Kim to tell us what is his favorite day. We come back. Max Olson. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store, and located on Lake Air Drive in Waco. And here are the weekly specials that go on the rest of today. You've got about 2 hours before they close their doors, and throughout the weekend, at least tomorrow. They have top sirloin steak at $10.05 a pound, tri-tip at $4.95 a pound, smoked pork tenderloins, $5.25 a pound, fresh salmon, fillets, delicious, $12.25 a pound, and prime ribeye steak. Oh, my goodness, that is my favorite. Bone in or not, $27.50 a pound. They also have chicken breast, $3.25 a pound, if that's what you want to do. Waco Custom Marketplace, the Bauer family, hometown butcher shop, hometown bakery, fresh baked bread and kolaches every day. Lobster tail tank, too. Well, they're alive and become tails at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Let
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Here we go, 365 Sports. Craig off the practice, Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak. Thank you very much for your time. Garrett Ross, Emery Winter, and Andrew Valade are doing what they do that makes everything look and sound so good. Max Olson, ESPN. Max, the portal closes tomorrow. There's always something going on. Like Nico seemed like it was a month ago now. But just in your opinion, is there a crunch between now and tomorrow? Or is it going to be a wave? Or is it just going to be a little bit higher than maybe it's been?
Great question. Appreciate y'all having me on as always. I think that, I'll tell you what, at this point, we've already seen like more than 900 scholarship players put their names in the portal. So we've already seen more guys this year than we saw last year, I think, in the spring period. I think you'll see players continue to kind of go in at the deadline. Once they tell their school that they want to be put in the portal, school has 48 hours to officially put them in there. So I think we'll see some players still pop up Saturday, Sunday, maybe even Monday. But I think we're still going to see, I think deadlines for action, and especially for guys that are maybe trying to get a little bit more money for 25. You could potentially see a couple more big names pop, but we shall see.
Max, you and Chris Lowe and Adam Rittenberg worked on the Nico story. Very in-depth, very, very well done. The thing that jumped out at me was, and we see this in professional football or professional sports where, an NBA team, you want to see the general manager go get, another star for a star to take the weight off their shoulders. the fact that Nico Iamaleava as a sophomore quarterback would be disappointed in the talent acquisition is something I know coaches don't want to hear, but why would he think that they would listen to him on that or trust any of his expertise? He's barely been in this thing.
Yeah, I think the thing that's like really hard to separate when you talk about all this stuff, and certainly in talking to a lot of people on both sides of the story, like to what extent Nico wanted any of this stuff to happen is still a mystery.
Yep.
I mean, really, I think you've got his father and his camp. They had their goals of what they thought Tennessee needed to do this offseason. They say that Nico, suffered multiple concussions last season, and they're concerned about the offensive line not being good enough this year after, 4 of those starters from last year graduated. They wanted to see a better receiving core. I think there was just a lot of frustration at the end of the season that's obviously exacerbated by getting blown out by Ohio State in the playoff game. But by all accounts, like, I don't think Nico was fed up at Tennessee. I don't think Nico was – certainly he was not sitting down with Josh Heupel and saying, I need this much money or I need you to go get better players. I think a lot of this was kind of a war between the adults, between the people that represent Nico and, Josh Heupel and the collective and the administration at Tennessee who, you can say kind of signed up for this in the first place, obviously, with the deal that they gave Nico's family when he was a high schooler. But that's the unfortunate thing. It's like we certainly still have not heard very much from Nico about how he feels about all this, but I don't think that he felt like, man, I need to get out of here.
So let me give an addendum to that question then, or an amendment to it. Coaches are not ever going to listen to somebody who's not a coach evaluate the talent on their roster. If his dad and those people said, we don't think the offensive line is good enough, and he'd be like, okay, well, go get some of your offensive linemen and send them to me. Otherwise, we have to develop what we have. Right?
Yeah. I think it's also kind of like, be careful what you wish for a little bit with this stuff where it's like, okay, yeah, we're not sure that we love the direction the offense is going in, the offensive line, the receivers are, Tennessee's going to be pretty young at receiver this year, but obviously some top recruits. Obviously, Dylan Sampson carried that offense a lot last year, and he's off to the NFL. But at the same time, when you're hearing that stuff from people in his camp, it's like, well, are you sure UCLA is like a much better situation offensively? I mean, I think it's, I think this was a thing that was kind of a problem is while you may have these frustrations about the situation at Tennessee, you ultimately did not have all this leverage of here's all these teams that are ready to take us and dump their guy for us. And so, Nico ends up in a spot at UCLA where obviously that coaching staff's under a lot of pressure. And, I think there's going to be obviously a ton of attention on can he really lift them up this year.
Max Olson with us, 365 Sports. Max, Chris Kleiman told us about a month or so ago about the how miserable he was going to be having to tell 30 guys or 25 players that they could no longer play at Kansas State because of roster spots. We know about the House settlement. We know what Judge Wilken has said. NCAA apparently didn't get the message. Are those players, if they've entered the portal since Kleiman talked to them, retroactive to come back if, in fact, those roster spots are returned?
It's a great question, and one that I think is really concerning over these next few weeks. As Judge Wilken is, making these demands about grandfathering in current players, is, I think players and coaches have been operating under this assumption throughout 2025 of like, all right, we're cutting this down to 105, 85 scholarship, 20 walk-on. And that's not just football, guys. That's all Division I sports, right? I mean, we're talking about big changes across the board here. And I looked it up yesterday. I mean, you've got more than 4,600 Division I athletes who have entered the portal in April. And I think in thousands of those cases, those players, those student athletes and their parents are making these decisions based on what they're being told by the coaches who are making those decisions based on, what they think the settlement is going to require. And so, yeah, I hope that if this rule changes and the active athletes get grandfathered in, that a lot of people can go get their spots back at their former school, because I think you're certainly seeing, and we're obviously seeing hundreds of walk-ons in football. go in the portal because they think they're losing a roster spot. You hope those first of all, you hope all this can be settled as soon as possible because a lot of people's kind of futures depend on this stuff. And you hope that schools will be able to take them back or that they'll be able to find a home.
Max, one guy I wanted to ask you about in the portal who committed to Ohio State, Bo Atkinson from North Carolina. I didn't realize until I read, it didn't click to me, that we had Belichick on or protege on Belichick crime here with Matt Patricia taking his guy. But Ohio State has big needs because particularly at defensive end, Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau are gone and needed somebody to replace that. Pretty big pickup for them, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a situation where, Bo Atkinson had a really promising year last year, led the Tar Heels in sacks. But as you go through these coaching transitions, you've got a new staff coming in and they're trying to implement a 3-4 defense. And that can be a spot where it's tough for an edge player. It's like, am I really what you are looking for in your defensive scheme here going forward? And I don't know if it was a great fit. He stayed and went through spring ball with Belichick and his staff. But, I think Ohio State and the way they play defense probably, it's going to end up being a better situation for him. But, certainly when he went in the portal, Georgia and South Carolina and a ton of big programs were after Bo Atkinson. I know Ohio State, they're going to have a ton of guys drafted tonight and tomorrow, and they're reloading in a lot of ways. But I think they feel pretty good about what they got, except D-line depth, and just do we have enough to replace the 4 guys that are about to get drafted here? So, defensive end, defensive tackle, that's a priority for them this spring, and Atkinson is a big get for them.
I know you got to go. If a player enters the portal in the next 24 to 30 hours or so, is it because they need playing time or because somebody has reached out to them and offered them money?
It could be like, I would say probably 3 different lanes there. You're going to have the guys who are being told by agents or people in their ear that, hey, if you go in the portal, you're going to make a lot more money somewhere else. You've got the guys who at the end of spring ball are saying, I'm not where I want to be on the depth chart. I need to move on or I need to make a change here just so that I can kind of have a better, role for my trajectory here going forward. And then I think at this time of year, guys, you're also just going to have players that, at the end of spring ball, coach is going to meet with you and say, hey, I think it's time for you to move on. And we can call them cuts or call them something else. But, I do think you're seeing a lot of guys at the bottom of the depth chart moving on here in this spring portal. And honestly, I think there's probably going to be some gems there. Like I'm seeing a lot of players hit the portal in the past week that are like redshirt freshmen or guys that haven't played very much, but they're still really young. And I think there's probably going to be some steals here down the road because this stuff is getting a little bit less developmental as schools recruit the portal more and want to go get experience all the time.
Thank you, buddy. Good luck with it. Handling it all. Max Olson, great to have you. Again, I don't know if Max saw that or not, but the tweet or the note by Kim Coulter, super chat of having Sam and Max back-to-back. They're great friends, work together at The Athletic. Max now at ESPN. Speaking of somebody that has not played, and this is for UC Fez and also MC Gusto. I may have to give MC Gusto his own message board name. Virginia Tech transfer quarterback Davy Belfort has committed to UCF. 5'11", 195 pounds, 4 years of eligibility. The son of MMA legend Vitor Belfort has not played, but was a highly ranked player coming out of high school. So there we are. That with that commitment, or that commitment from one school to the next. I
think that's a pretty cool little thing to get a guy who clearly, he's not going to take any crap off anybody.
No, I mean, he'd beat your ass.
Yeah.
I mean, just flat out would. By the way, another quarterback note from earlier we did not do in the first segment. He hadn't played much, but Giovanni McCoy from Texas State is headed to Temple. Isn't that Casey Keeler up there, former Sam Houston State coach? He did start 9 games for Oregon State. Then 7,000 yards in his career, but apparently beat out as a quarterback at Texas State with G.J. Kinney there. And so he now is headed to play at Temple. One other note. We will have Brian Broaddus in just a minute, former NFL scout who works for the Dallas 105.3 The Fan in Dallas on the draft on many, many things. Garrett, let's do these notes. Robert Griffin III. He's going to be honored by the Texas High School Football Hall of Fame on May the 10th. He is now joining Fox Sports. Brock Hewitt, getting out of the broadcast business to coach his son in high school. And RG3, who had a nice little run with ESPN, didn't last long enough. And, of course, he was on the show about, a month or so ago, is headed to be at Fox Sports.
That's going to be a really cool booth. Jason Benetti's one of the best play-by-play guys going in football and basketball right now. Love his work. Rob has a very infectious energy. He is, and I would say this to his face, he's a big dork. And I think that's, and I say that endearingly. He's
you could outrun him.
No, I think, and he's got this nerdy side and the jock side and all these things. I know that like some people, look, he's not for everybody, but nobody is, right? But I think that he and Benetti will be really good together. I think that his commentary will be very good. He was doing a really good job at ESPN. I think this is a great move for Fox to put him in that number 2 booth with Jason. And I think that's going to be fun games to listen to.
I know that's got to be thrilling for him to get back. He's not going to do many studio shows, but will be the number 2 voice color analyst.
I don't think studio work is his. Like, he's really good. Again, like, I don't think Jason Kelsey is either. I think Robert Griffin, Jason Kelsey, guys like that, like, they are social animals, and they need to be like, you need to release them into the wild and see how they do.
Like a dove out the window?
Yeah, like just see how they interact with people, because they have that special kind of vibe to them. So, yeah, sitting at a desk and going, it's not really their thing.
It kind of restricts them.
Yeah.
And they're given very little time. That's kind of a hard thing in a mixture. That's why those who are the main hosts of those shows, whether it's Ernie Johnson or whoever,
did you see they gave
Laura
Shaq
Rutledge? It's hard because you got a bunch of personalities who are all fighting for time.
Did you see they gave Shaq a porta potty?
Yes, I did. I did. I saw that. That was an incredible moment. All right, EA Sports College Football 2026. Garrett, take it away.
Somebody play the video?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Forget it.
Everyone, Rich Eisen with you. It is draft.
The Detroit Lions select.
Hello?
JD, it's Coach DQ with the Commanders. You ready for this?
Been ready, Coach.
Man, I already know. You've been building for this
Your whole life. Just sit with that a minute, man, how important this is. Because anyone don't make it this far. Anyone don't make it to the top. Thankfully, I'm not just talking to anyone. No, sir.
Welcome home.
Hey, turn me up a little bit more in the headphones.
My nipples just got hard watching that, Paul. Commanders on EA Sports and our buddy, former Arizona State LSU quarterback, Jaden Daniels. I got goosebumps.
Hey.
Like, they're featured in a good way.
So they are they did this before back in the day where on the road to you could take the road to glory all the way and play Madden. So now I got a gift certificate for Christmas for I believe April 29th in the pre-order day, I will be pre-ordering.
There you go.
For sure. Now I will tell you, I have
how much does it cost? Couple hundred?
Probably like 70.
Oh, okay.
It's like 70. So like you're probably going to be out $150 between the two of them. And then,
all right.
But I finally did after a few months when I got my PS5 for Christmas. I am now in 2041 in my FSU dynasty. I've won several national titles. I went through a period, Smokey, that was very distressing. You'll like this. I kept losing to Nebraska. In the
there you
playoff.
go.
I kept like it, and they would get me by like a.
How come you never told me that
touchdown?
until now?
I
would have had a much better
it never
football
came up.
season.
But yeah, so And this is in Nebraska. This is like Nebraska 2036. So like
you're telling me there's a chance.
yeah, exactly. So like 2036. So I went some time. I won several in a row. And then I went some time where I kept losing the playoffs. And then the last season I did, Oklahoma got me with 4 seconds left. I said no more. And we've kind of gone all out and pulled out all the stops this year. We just won a national championship over UCLA.
You didn't beat you 12-0?
No, it wasn't that. 10-2 or 13-2 was that score.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, no, I was winning, and then they got me in the end. Less than a minute left. Less than 10 seconds.
So you're winning, though. Yeah.
So I'm winning again. I just finished up a season. I'm starting another one. I'm going to take that one to 2050, and then I'm going to retire, and I'm going to start another one that will take me until July,
Garrett,
when it will end, and I'll get the new version.
You had that's awesome, by the way, that Florida State's winning again.
I'm happy.
Nebraska were in some big games. So
really,
Garrett, you did not know the EA Sports game was coming out today, or that announcement today, did you?
I did not.
What are you wearing right now, buddy?
I am wearing the my Joe Gibbs special hat.
The Redskins, back when they were called the Redskins, and also the same with the T-shirt, right? The Indian head.
Yes, I'm wearing the Redskins shirt, and it was draft day. I felt like this needed to be done. I used to enjoy it. I haven't really taken time to enjoy it the past few years, and I thought, you know what? They're actually good again. The vibes are right.
I hope.
Let's embrace this.
I'm still very nervous.
Time.
It's a bit of time, man.
High school is back to Road to Glory. Early release July 7th. Standard release July 10th. New score bug. Let's see here. Lowe's and Metallica partnership. I don't know what the hell that means.
It just means that they'll have some advertising, and Metallica will have the music in the game.
Remember, so Virginia Tech would do the Inner Sandman, and it wasn't on there last year. So now Metallica is coming out with them to do like a battle, not a battle of the bands, but something with the bands, so they can incorporate that to the game, and you can actually have Inner Sandman with Virginia Tech.
Metallica recently played Blacksburg.
Yeah, they played that.
Yeah, they played Blacksburg. And so, that'll be really cool to have that on there, and real coaches on there. So here's the deal. Garrett can fire Brian Kelly.
Thank God. It's been a long time coming.
So if you are happy with your coach, or maybe now you can go hire a coach that you want.
Kenny Dillingham coming to the Bayou.
You're going to money whip him, Garrett?
Absolutely.
Yeah, just money whip Kenny Dillingham, have him turn his back on his beloved alma mater and leave. But yeah, so.
All right, well, that's nice. Also, this is a horrible note. We mentioned this yesterday about former Freer High School and also Texas star, played with the Bears on this great Super Bowl team in '85, that Steve McMichael, Mondo, he had MS. ALS, a great story. There was one of the most loving and yet gut-wrenching pictures. He was put into hospice. His wife was laying with him as he was in hospice, and it was just, you could just see it, And he passed away yesterday evening. Walter Payton's son announced it, and so did, of course, the rest of the Bears and the NFL. He was a part of the 1979 Dave Campbell's Texas Football magazine. I'll tell you someone, Paxton. We all know Paxton breathes burnt orange. He was devastated by this news. We knew it was coming because they went into hospice. You know what the next thing happens there. But he was sick to his stomach last night, like a lot of people were. And Steve McMichael, God rest his soul, is gone at the age of 67.
He'd suffered for a long time, and I'm glad he is on to the. I get glad. Relief for his family is the right thing.
He's in a better place.
He's on to the next event, and he was an amazing player.
I'm sorry, Paul.
And it's and ALS is, man, I don't know if there's anything worse you can get. Like, it's just to be in a prison inside your own body is essentially what it is. And so I would not wish ALS on my worst enemy. It's the worst thing ever.
The Lou Gehrig's disease, right?
Yeah,
when we come back, Brian brought us a former NFL scout on a lot of stories about what he dealt with on draft day or the weekend. Remember, it was a Saturday, Sunday thing. The Cowboys and expectations what starting positions must be filled from this draft, and some other backstories as well. He will join us. And then Matt Norlander, one of the best when it comes to college basketball coverage from CBS, will join us to update us on the NCAA men's basketball portal and more. This is your 365 Sports, and we're back with Brian Broaddus. He's next. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center off Valley Mills, Richland Drive in Waco. And all of the cigars you want are in there. I love Rocky Patel. There's also Macanudo, Ashton, Romeo, and Julieta. I told you, a couple of days ago that La Galera is become one that I haven't really had smoked in a long time. But I got a couple of them at Don's, and I did when I played golf the last time I did. And, oh, by the way, it rained like hell today, so I don't know if any golf course is going to be open over the next few days. But if you need cigars and you're in the Central Texas area, Don's has them for you in their 48-foot walk-in humidor. Vita Dreams to help you have a more restful night of sleep, extra sleep, and you don't wake up tired because you fall asleep pretty quickly. But it's not like you feel like, oh, my God, I'm just and gone. It's not like that. It's really neat if you want or you struggle falling asleep. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans with Cheyenne and Joshua in between Richland Drive, Valley Mills in Waco.
Alan Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Alan Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Brian Broaddus, former NFL scout on 105.3 The Fan, and has all sorts of podcasts with the Cowboys and does an incredible job. Has been major part of many drafts when he was in the NFL. Great to have you, Brian. Really, really is. Thanks for your time. If I was to say these are starting positions the Cowboys must come out of the weekend with, what would you say those must be?
Well, it's good to be with you, Smokey, as always. The thing I think that the Cowboys, it's really open to a lot of different avenues. When you start to talk about a team that struggled the way that they did, there is a lot of holes on this team. I think that you would have to start with, I don't think they particularly have a running back on this roster right now that if they had to go and start a game, we could talk about Williams and others there, but I don't think they have somebody that they could honestly go and put out there right now and win a game. I think it would be very difficult for them. They have to figure out what's going on at corner right now. I think that's another area where they've probably going to have to look at that through the draft. Maybe we'll see after the draft, post-draft, if there's somebody out there that they want to sign. But that's a little bit of a mess right now with what's going on with the injuries and some of the losses they've had. I think at one technique, they would probably tell you right now that, Mozzie Smith has gotten better, but he's nowhere near where they need, to be paired with Oso Digizua. So that would be an area of concern for me, for sure. So yeah, you wide receiver, running back, thinking about what's going on at right guard would be a concern for me. One technique defensive tackle and potentially corner. I think these are all areas that would be something that I think that they would look at just to try and fill the best as they can.
Had they retained Rico Dowdle, would that change your mind on when they took a running back in this draft?
I think it would make it a little bit different for me, Smokey. I think that they would, to me, I think that you could go a little bit later in this draft. I don't, in where I'm looking at this draft, and it's actually very deep at the running back position. Where I'm looking at it right now is, and I'm just going to try and break it down as simple as possible, to go from very good to just good. If they waited, if they have Rico Dowdle, I think they could have waited until day 3 to pair somebody up with him. I just think right now they need to think about whether, and they're likely not going to pick one in the first round, but second round, third round, I think those are that would be the area that I would try and go ahead and grab this running back. But to your point, if Rico was here, I think you could wait to day 3. Without him, I think you're going to have to try and get that within the first 2 days.
Will McClay and Jerry and Steven, the scouts, you've been in that business of building a roster and getting ready for a draft and whatever else. How much influence does a first-year coach like Schottenheimer have, if at all?
Well, I'll tell you what, though, you're absolutely right about coaches being involved with, in this process. Brian has talked about he wants the scouts to do their jobs. And I could appreciate that. It reminds me very much of when Bill Parcells came in with us, and Bill did not know the scouts. He didn't have a background of the scouts that were working for the Cowboys at the time. So he really sat back. He took his coaches out of the room. He sat back and kind of observed, made some opinions about where he think the board should be. And so there was those discussions. And then I think that Brian Schottenheimer's going to do the same thing. I know Jerry's encouraging the scouts to the coaches to have an opinion on this. Mike McCarthy, I worked in Green Bay. Mike McCarthy, I worked with Ted Thompson there, who was a general manager for years. Teddy picked the players for Mike McCarthy. Mike didn't have a whole heck of a lot to say. But when Mike came to Dallas, he had a big say. Dave Campo had a big say. Every coach that I'd been with and worked with there had a say in what was going on in that draft. So Brian Schottenheimer will have an influence, but it's also Will's very good at managing the Joneses, managing the coaches, and then managing the scouts, and then kind of coming to that opinion. They like to have a consensus in their room. And I think that Brian Schottenheimer, if it's all said and done, he'll have a big opinion. Jerry will encourage him, and Jerry Jones will ultimately be the tiebreaker if they do have any type of discussion where it needs to be done.
It's in the war room. Who actually has an opinion in the war room?
Well, usually what happens is when they build their boards, this is all done the weeks before the draft. And so then you have what's the stack and then the actual board. So a lot of the discussions and a lot of the debates will happen, take care of that. You don't want to be on the clock and all of a sudden having to deal with, the story about Johnny Manziel being on the board, when they lose Ryan Shazier on their stack, they're going to take the linebacker Ryan Shazier. He's gone. Zach Martin's the next player. Jerry says Johnny Manziel's on that board. Everybody's quiet in the room. Finally, Steven steps up. Hey, we got Zach Martin here, Jerry. Jason Garrett steps up. Everybody at that point then kind of has their opinion. I think Jerry does encourage the dialogue. I think he does he encourages discussion. But man, you just want to make sure that all that is done before the draft. You don't want any massive just people losing their minds while you're on the clock. That's just not a very productive way of doing things. But there's discussion in that room.
There's a 365-day-a-year calendar for getting the next level of what you're going to have to fill a roster and the decisions and whatever. And yeah, there's the season. Is this Christmas Day for scouts and personnel people, the weekend itself, or how do you describe it as a guy who's been there and been a part of a franchise? What is today like for a franchise?
It's actually really, really exciting. I would say this is Smokey. This is a great gig. It would be a great gig if you didn't have to play games. If you just would, we could scout players and we could have a draft and like on paper, okay, you had the best draft, so we're done. Let's do the cycle again. But yeah, this is it's hope. It's what brings you that. It brings you hope when you have a poor season, or if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, your team is not going to be the same that won the Super Bowl. It gives you hope that like, okay, we have a base that we can work with, but they're going to let us add more pieces to our team. We're going to move on from some pieces. We're going to get to add some pieces. If you're a team that's been struggling and not getting the playoffs and had a bad season, this is your hope. The league is set up in a way to allow you to pick at the very top of the board. And there's a reason when you stack your board that player 12 is better than player 28, and depending on how you stack your board, that league is giving an opportunity to try and add better players that way. So it is a very exciting time. Draft day to me was always very, being in that room those 3 days was always I felt very calm. The chaos to me was getting to that point. It's the calmness is when you're actually sitting there and you're watching the picks come off the board, and then you're writing them down and you're thinking, man, Jacksonville just made a damn good pick. The Rams just made a damn good pick. Oh man, if I'm Carolina, I wouldn't have taken that guy. You just you could play that through your brain. But yeah, this is a very, very exciting time just because it gives you hope that you can make your team better, that maybe if you weren't very good, that you can be back to being good. And if you're really good, you can maybe get back to that Super Bowl like the Philadelphia Eagles will.
If Tetero McMillan is there at 12 and nothing like goes nuts or chaos between 1 and 12, is that who they pick? Is that who you think they pick or somebody else?
I've been trying to put myself in their shoes, and I usually do that. I've evaluated 235 players, and I have my board up on 1053thefan.com. You can see the stack and how I saw them. I always try and put myself in Dallas's situation or any other team that, people, they're fans of other teams that ask me questions about players and stuff. So I always try and put myself in the situation of what they would do. Selfishly, we would absolutely love for them to pick every single player that we like. It doesn't always work that way. So, yeah, if McMillan is there, I do believe McMillan would be the pick. I would be very interested to see, though, because there's been a lot of discussion about Matthew Golden. But if McMillan's not on that board, how close then is how close is Golden to, say, maybe a Buka from Ohio State? How close is it to maybe a Will Johnson, a corner from Michigan, or Tyler Booker, guard from Alabama? Where if my player is gone, where do the other players start to stack up? And I think that's the fascinating thing. I think if you're a Cowboy fan, you hope that McMillan, he could definitely come in. You asked me about positions, that wide receiver is clearly one of those. But I kind of feel like, though, that if we need to prepare ourselves, that if McMillan if he goes earlier in this draft, if he goes to the Raiders at 6, if he goes to the Saints at 9, that takes you out of the mix. Now you have to think about, okay, what next player are we going to select here? Because you always want to prepare for the absolute worst that could happen to you. If your player's gone, where are you going to be? Dallas experience that I mentioned with Ryan Shazier. Ryan Shazier off the board. Zach Martin was the next player. Boom. Potential Hall of Fame player right there. That because you were prepared, you were ready when your guy came off the board ahead of you. And so I think, to me, that, like you said, if McMillan is the guy, great. If he's not, then boy, this could be some fun dialogue that we have while Dallas is on the clock between a lot of different positions, the wide receivers, offensive linemen, a defensive lineman, and then maybe a cornerback.
The Cowboys have had a lot of success, Brian, in offensive line drafting. And again, you see how sometimes someone might fall in your lap, or they move back and they get Frederick, unfortunately, because his career was cut short. But my God, Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, on and on and on. Why have they had so much success in the offensive line? And if they had to take one in the first round, based on what's available, you mentioned Booker at Alabama. Who else would be in that mix?
Yeah, I think that they've had some success. What's really strange now is this will be the third different offensive line coach that they've had to deal with. With Joe Philbin being gone, and then and then last year, you had a new coach, and then now this year you got new coaches. Actually, you got a new offensive line coach, and then the offensive coordinator is a former offensive line coach. So they've thrown some resources to try and help this offensive line. I think those are the types of things that the linemen are like, wow, we got to learn, we got to understand, we got to, it's like starting all over again. I think Dallas has had some success over the years because they've had scouts that have an understanding of what these coaches want in particular players. I think that, Joe Philbin had a certain style of player he wanted. I think that Mike Solari had a different style of player that he wanted. We'll see with this new crew what the type of player, but they've done a really nice job of being able to marry what their offensive line coach and what they wanted scheme-wise to be able to do. You're looking at a group that this year they're talking about more outside running game, more the pin and pull where you block down, and you get guys in space. Those are guys. Now, what you mentioned, Booker from Alabama, a bigger guy, more of a guy, but he can play in space. As athletic as maybe Donovan Jackson is from Ohio State, who kicked out when Josh Simmons got hurt, he kicked from left guard to left tackle. Could that be a guy that could be in the mix there? So I think that they're kind of depending on the scheme. They're looking for particular guys, but they've done a really good job of being able to marry those particular traits of offensive linemen to their scheme, and it's helped them that way. But they've gone out and let's be real honest about with Tyler Guyton in his situation. Will McClay made it a big point there. It was asked about the type of player and players that love football, players that are committed, that kind of thing. And that's a new thing with NIL money, and how committed are players really to being their absolute best. And it's something that these scouts are going to have to deal with. Usually offensive linemen are very, very safe to pick because you can see how they play. You got a lot of them have made 25, 30 starts. Some of these guys, if you talk about majors at Texas, 50, 60 starts. So you could get an idea about these guys and how they play, unlike some of the other positions, and you can kind of get an idea how a guy works with other guys. Offensive line is really 5 guys being one. And so that's why I think they've had some success, because they've been able to marry, again, those guys, their ability, along with their ability to be able to work with other guys.
How do you measure talent with the motor that maybe doesn't seem to run very often? You hear a lot about Walter Nolan and others. How do you know?
That's terrifying. It really is. There's things that we used to be able to do. Nowadays we're not getting players to run all the drills. We're not getting a 40-yard dash, and we might not get a short shuttle, and we might not get a 3-cone. But yeah, the heart, the desire. I mean, you really have to be able to trust the people that have been with these players, and that's where scouting really, the relationships that you're able to build. That's where relationships come in. And I know that, say I go to Waco and talk to their coaches about their players. And, I have a coach that steps up to me and says, "Hey, Brian, this guy, he's a hard guy to coach. He doesn't really like football. He plays football because he wants to get through school, and he really doesn't, he's not a guy that's just totally committed, and when you start to hear those things, or you hear the total opposite, like, for example, Jalen Walker from Georgia. Questions were asked about his teammates at Georgia during the combine interviews of, if you could take a player along with you to the NFL, who would you take? And to a man, those teammates kept saying Jalen Walker. Jalen Walker's the guy I would take with me. So that kind of thing resonates with scouts. There's and it's really, really, really hard. The last couple of drafts, some of the things that might be the questions: does Mozzie Smith really, really love football? Is he really, really committed to football? He got better last year, but the first year he really wasn't good at football, and how committed was. And you look at Tyler Guyton. He didn't play a whole lot of football at Oklahoma. It's maybe the learning curve is a little steep there, but did he really, really love football? Is there some immaturity questions there? I think those are the types of things, when it happens to you, and it happens maybe back to back, that kind of changes your thinking a little bit about motor and heart and desire and how important it is to you. Because you do not want to draft a player that is just doing it because it's a job. You want somebody that's committed to trying getting better every single day. And that's a really, really hard thing to measure. You can watch it on tape and say, man, it doesn't look like he's really trying very hard here. And then you start to talk to the coaches and you're like, well, this guy doesn't. Or the guy's just, maybe the guy's not as good, not as talented skills wise, but man, everything he's doing is at full speed. Maybe that's the kind of, and then the coaches tell you, well, this kid he's not the most talented guy, but he's, Terrence Steele is a great example of this, the right tackle for the Cowboys. Not the most talented guy, but when you start to hear about how he's first in line, he's first in the meetings, he's first in the weight room, you start to hear those things make up for guys that might not have as much talent.
A couple of questions more. And Brian Broaddus, man, great to have you with us. I was able to get into one of those position coach scouts meetings when Baylor had a pro day like 10, 12 years ago. Gil Brandt got me in, the great Gil Brandt. And he said, I want you to listen to some of the questions. And coaches at that time, you got to have trust in the coach to tell you the truth. And there's a bunch of people in that room. How do you gain their trust and vice versa? Because if they don't tell you the truth, doesn't that, then you get soured on him or them? Yeah.
It's funny that you asked the question the way you did, because I could say, coaches to me are part of it. I personally, this is what I used to do. I would talk to equipment men or women now. I would talk to trainers, and I would talk to people who interact with the player, say in the dining hall. Right. Maybe you mosey into the dining hall and you ask a couple of questions. Maybe the folks that are running the dining hall, you say, hey, how does so-and-so treat players or treat staff in here? Oh, geez. What a great human being, always respectful. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Thank you. Please. That type of guy. Great. Thank you. Talk to the equipment guys or the gals, and they'll tell you, man, this guy, he's messy. We have to get on him. He's not very good with the staff. He feels entitled. He's always wanting things. Or it could be the complete opposite. Sometimes coaches, like I say, when I was in that position as assistant recruiting coordinator at Texas A&M at 1990, where I had an interaction with pro scouts, and I tried to always be super honest about it. And you have to be careful, because you don't want it getting out that hey, but you have to really trust the guy or the gal you're talking to about. You have to trust them. Sometimes in group setting, you get somebody that's very, very honest about, hey, I wouldn't touch this guy. But that gets out. For example, we've got a situation right now with, there's been some reports about Shedeur Sanders, and NFL assistant coach said this, and man, that was both guns a-blazing there about Shedeur Sanders. You really don't want all that to get out. That's not something that's something you want to stay in a meeting. If, you're a scout, you got that area, and I've got Baylor, we'll use Baylor as the example again. I got Baylor, and I go in there and say, hey, the coaches are telling me this. The equipment guys are telling me this. The trainer's telling me this. And you kind of put all that together. But if you could talk to the people that these players interact with every single day on that level and get that kind of trust and confidence, and you could get them off on the side and maybe not in a group setting, because sometimes in a group setting, you'll get some coach speak where, yeah, great kid, does everything we ask him to do. But then you talk to people away from that, and I wouldn't draft this kid if it was me. He's not the type of guy. I mean, we're hopeful that he gets in the transfer portal and goes on. He is he's a hard guy to do. You have to build that trust. And like I say, by building the trust, you're not also talking to the media and saying, hey, well, when I was through Baylor, they had this kid. And then you start to go with the both guns blazing. That's not going to get it done.
How do you decipher what could be other teams putting things out because they're trying to help their own position? Somebody panics or they're trying to move up or down. Is there some intel with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it was more prevalent back in the day. I mean, we didn't have social media the way we do today. I think there was always things of deception. I think you have to be really careful of putting stuff out to try and manipulate. I think there's things that there's things you kind of keep to yourself. And if your guy's there, great. If he's not, then figure out the next guy. But like I say, it was a lot more back in the day. Today, I think it's a little, we have the avenues of being able to tell a beat writer like, hey, listen, I heard this guy said, like just we talked about with Shedeur Sanders.
Sure.
That same coach might be in a position, that same coach might be at the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21 and they want Shedeur Sanders, and now they're putting out bad things about Shedeur Sanders to get everybody to talk about it. But it's the media that talks about it more than the scouting community. They know what the player is. What they're going to be, what's potentially could happen here though is they're messing with the wrong guy with Deion Sanders. I'm saying you want to be able to go into these universities and have a relationship. But if all of a sudden people are talking about players in that light, and especially that player with that coach, then things at Colorado for NFL teams going through there might be a little bit more difficult than what it was in the past.
Like a college program that has an offer to a player, he commits and then they pull the offer. They could be like nuked for at least as long as the head coach is still there. Brian, last thing, you mentioned what it's like today. Did you get butterflies on the night of the draft or back in the day when it was on the weekend? What is that like? I know you've got full coverage on 105.3 The Fan this afternoon and then tonight and then through the weekend. Is there that sense of right before the game type butterflies, nervous, anxiety, whatever?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. One of my traditions that I used to do is that when we were in Green Bay, I always found something, and maybe it was just me, but I always found something that maybe the Pope had blessed or something, and I would tape that onto our draft board. I'd put that on up top on our draft board. So I was always looking for that divine intervention. But I would always stand there and look at the night before. I would always be the last guy in the room at the night before the draft. It might be midnight, just kind of making sure that we were buttoned up and ready to go. And then we had the candy dish all full of candy. My boss, Ron Wolf, at the time loved to eat Twizzlers, so I had to make sure I had Twizzlers in the thing. But I would look at those tags one last time, and I would just say, please, just start glowing. Just glow, just for the Pro Bowlers, the All Pros, just glow. Just give me an idea up here who could play on this board and stuff like that. But yeah, you do. When the commissioner walks up to the podium and opens the draft, that's when he says, the 2025 NFL draft is now open, and on the clock that is the Tennessee Titans. That's when it hits you that for the next 18 hours, you've got to be just at your absolute best. And I think that's the challenge of it. And I think that's what makes it so exciting, that that you're about to go on this journey and you really have no idea where that journey is going to take you. You want to believe you've got a map, but you really don't have a map. It's up to all the other 31 teams that are with you in that, of how it all plays out. But it's such an exciting time. It's the adrenaline is I can only imagine, and I've been a part of a Super Bowl team and that in it, but the draft to me is one of those things that just, it could take your breath away, and then you kind of calm down, and then you're ready to go.
Ryan, you're the best, man. Thank you very much. I know it's a crazy busy 3 or 4 days, but always for you. Thanks for your time. We do appreciate it.
Thank you, Smokey. Great to be with you, sir.
Ryan Broaddus with us, 105.3 The Fan on 365 Sports.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Penny to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Matt Norlander, CBS Sports, great basketball writer, analyst, will join us here in the 5 o'clock hour. Mickey Spagnola normally joins us on Thursdays. He's going to be there tomorrow, so we'll know what the Cowboys do in the first round and have him on tomorrow. Tim Brando is locked in as well for tomorrow. And then this one here. When I saw this, I'm like, man, they must have done some bad stuff. Fordham, the Rams. Remember, Ralph Rousseau was just on with us, right? The NCAA hit Fordham's men's basketball team with 3 years of probation, $35,000 fine, and sanctions. They're being punished for bringing recruits to photo shoots in Times Square, a bowling alley, and trips to the Knicks, Nets, and Giants games.
So here's what I got to ask.
Yeah, please do.
Who gives a shit?
Yeah, I know.
I mean, what are we doing? What are they doing? They did this. So what? It's like, this is the school you're going on a moral high ground with? You know what, Fordham? I hope you appeal this. And I hope your defense is, so the F what?
Yep.
What are we talking about here? Of course they took recruits to place. You know what? Texas, and good for them for doing this. I'm just they put their recruits up in the nicest hotel rooms in Austin. The recruits will go into the hotel rooms, take pictures of what they have laid out for them. Then they'll go take them to one of the many, 4 and 5 star restaurants in Austin for dinner. And they're not going like, look, just left side of the menu. We're just getting the apps and salads. They're letting like, you want a tomahawk? You want 2 tomahawk ribeyes? You know what?
You
Get
want
it.
a lobster tail?
Yeah.
How many?
You know what?
And then while the players are visiting or with the team or with coaches, et cetera, being wined and dined or walking around campus, the parents have all these things loaded up around the hotel where they're at for them to have what they want. And that's the way it should be.
I fail to see what's wrong with this and why Fordham somehow didn't file the paperwork for their extravagant visits for the basketball players or athletes. I mean, for the basketball players, it's just dumb. It's just absolutely dumb. And look, there might be something in here where they thumb their nose at the one rule that exists, but I mean, please.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. I look back on myself and I think about the talk shows I did when Jim Tressel got fired for lying about the tattoos. And I will say now, I'm sorry, Jim Tressel, my opinion has greatly changed. A tattoo has no monetary value past the person who gets it. Garrett has one in his arm right there. He cannot transfer it to me for any amount of money. There's nothing he can do and be like, hey, Garrett, I'll give you $1 million for your tattaw. You'd be like, oh, you want to go get one?
I might carve it for
yeah. That you want to go get one just like mine? Like, no. I want that one.
I don't have tattoos. I've never been a big tattoo. I know people like it, but if you paid me $1 million,
but that was the thing. Like Terrell Pryor and somebody else got free tattoos, and Jim Tressel knew about it and then lied about it, and he got fired. And here's the thing. I know you shouldn't lie about these things, and it was a pretty minor offense as things go, but I understand Jim Tressel, a guy that I consider that has a lot of integrity, going, if I just said I didn't know about this and nobody ever asked me again, would it go away? Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So did he pull the right thing? No, but in the annals of stupid things that the NCAA has been mad about, you think about it now in retrospect, or I think about all the things I think about now, like, free shoes university or like limo rides from agents and plane flights,
escort services.
That one is a little bit beyond
that's
the pale,
illegal.
But
here's a response
49 states.
Here's the response from someone who just happens to be a basketball fan. Players getting paid millions, but the NCAA is cracking down on Fordham, who checks notes, finished last in the Atlantic 10 this year, only had one winning season during their time cheating of Times Square photo ops and going to NFL games. Trust me, you can't hate the NCAA enough. Remember, they got so pissed off at Kentucky or whoever that they put Stephen F. Austin on probation once. By the way, he's just around the corner from jumping on Garrett.
Okay.
As he's wrapping up dinner. But I just see this is the kind of stuff that it's okay. We can't remember they had North Carolina kind of in the square, the radar, the scope. They can't do that, so they'll go and hammer Fordham. Now, Matt might give us different information about that. And I know some of it was illegal. Well, Reggie Bush, what he was doing is illegal, even if they're giving him money now. And he got his Heisman back, right? He says a lot of that, what do you call it? Not reciprocal. Revisionist history. Yeah. And you got to give Manziel credit because he was the one fighting for Reggie Bush to get it back.
Look, Johnny Manziel, I think, I don't think you want to give him like credit as like the hero of all this because, he wasn't, but I got to move the table back. But he wasn't. But even still, like even unwitting hero or whatever, he kind of shined a light on how dumb this all was.
Absolutely. Matt Norlander, fantastic college basketball writer, analyst, and more, joins us, CBS with us on 365 Sports. Matt, thank you very much for your time. Great to have you. We were just discussing Fordham and the penalties that they were hit with. I don't get it, especially in this day and age. Maybe when they were doing it, it wasn't quite yet. You're not supposed to do that. But they hammered Fordham. Is this because you're mad at Kentucky, North Carolina, and maybe KU, so you hammer Fordham?
No, I know that's why. Thanks for having me, guys. I know
You're welcome.
It's an old Tarkanian line, and certainly in the point of that line, as you well know, but for your audience, is the NCAA, traditionally speaking, wants to show that it has some semblance of a spine when it comes to punishments, and doing that against the biggest and most powerful programs might not be in your best interest, but no one's going to fight back if you put a mid-major under serious discipline. So with Fordham, if you talked about all of it, we're not going to get into too many of the details here, but it is a bit ironic here. I mean, Fordham had a few prospective players, two of which went on to play at Fordham under former coach Keith Ergo, and set up photo shoots, in New York City, took him to a Giants game, and some of this stuff was deemed at the time to be an impermissible benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Now Fordham is going to get vacated from those wins that it had, and it is going to be slapped with a fine and lose some recruiting days. And frankly, this stuff just doesn't land with me whatsoever. As I put on Twitter a couple days ago, if you have the right people that are supporting your program from a donor perspective, recruiting days don't really matter from a portal perspective. They don't really matter. I had one coach earlier this week tell me, and the one good thing about, and this all ties to Fordham, said one of the good things about where we're at now is I don't suffer the heartbreak recruiting players that I used to now, because although this coach is saying the money is the most important thing, he said it's really not everything. Yes, some of these players are going to take their biggest offer, but I understand why people get cynical on that end. But man, these recruitments in the portal, they might last 2 days, they might last 10 days at most, but it's really starts and is over quickly. And if you get a guy, awesome. If you don't, well, you didn't grow an attachment to him the way that you used to when you were building out traditionally, overwhelmingly through high school targets. And so I say that to say, if Fordham is able to rally itself the kind of recruiting budget that new coach Mike Magpio, I believe, will, these restrictions are not going to prevent Fordham from getting the players that it should be capable of getting at that level.
Yeah. Matt, PJ Haggerty wants reportedly $4 million. Now, he's been at several schools. He just had his best overall season. Is he going to get that amount, or will it be something a little short of that?
I have no idea if he's going to get that amount. It only takes one. I talked about this earlier on Thursday with my co-host Gary Parrish on the Sports Eye on College Basketball podcast. We got into a discussion about Haggerty and Memphis and everything. It is a reported $4 million ask, perhaps, and that if indeed that's the case, a number of days have passed since he went into the portal. The reality of where the situation might stand on Thursday evening here could be different from where it was, say, Monday afternoon. But if he gets it, good on him. If not, it won't surprise me. Haggerty, was a top 3 scorer, top 5 scorer in college basketball this past season. He was a second-team All-American on a Memphis team that was plenty good. Oh, by the way, but there's a difference. I think the 4 million number's out there for a couple of reasons. One, I reported after JT Toppin returned to Texas Tech that his NIL deal was worth $4 million. I'm also told there are incentives attached to that deal. So here you have Haggerty looking at Toppin, who same general area. To me, Toppin was one of the 5 best players in the country last season. I would have had Haggerty anywhere between, say, top 8 or top 12. And so he sees a number attached and he says, okay, well, why can't we go get that? So I get that. But while there are no shortage of schools that have plenty of money to work with, the number of schools that would both find a fit for Haggerty and be able to meet that asking price is probably pretty small. Doesn't mean he won't get it. Maybe he will get it. But ultimately, you would think and hope that his decision will be guided by not just the money, obviously, but okay, you're going to spend another year or 2 in school. How good of an NBA prospect are you? What place is going to enable you to best improve your overall stock as a future professional in basketball, and put you in a situation where you're going to be able to thrive, be successful, and then play games that matter, and play games on a team for a team that will be relevant, in November, December, and then when it means most in February and March.
Has there been a story in college basketball, and of course here locally when you had the Rob Wright story that he had signed with Baylor and then ended up at BYU? That's part of the business. Has there been a story like Nico and Tennessee and UCLA in men's basketball?
So the answer is no in this regard. So the Nico story got really public really fast. Tennessee moved on. Allegedly he and his family were looking for a $4 million payday there for a quarterback, right? We haven't had that. Now, have there been instances in college basketball where, let's call it a top 2 player on a given roster? Basketball is obviously different than football,
Right, sure.
But a top 2 player on a roster had asked for more money and didn't get it, and then moved on to a different spot. Yeah, I think that's fair to say that has happened. We saw it happen. Now, this wasn't a top 2 player. This was not a top 5 player, but Denzel Aberdeen's going to play at Kentucky next season. He was an important piece on Florida's national championship team, and he was a projected starter, and he went and asked for a substantial increase in his money deal, and I was told by sources that Florida was not going to meet that number. And so then it became his choice to say, okay, I'll go in the portal and find a team. In Kentucky, as far as I'm concerned, Kentucky is top 3 in money resources in this year's cycle. And it was more than happy to bring Aberdeen aboard. Whether or not they got him at a true discount or not, who's to say? But yes, there have been instances where players have requested more and been told no, and then gone in the portal. Although I will also say this, I shared this earlier this week. So I was talking to a high major coach. I doubt this is a unique situation, but I got to talking to a high major coach. And this coach said, he actually told me this. So the portal closed Tuesday at midnight. Tuesday, technically Wednesday at 12 a.m., but it was Tuesday night, right? So we got to talking on Tuesday afternoon, and he told me this story. He said, I'll tell you the story, but the deal is you can't share it until tomorrow after the portal's closed. And I said, okay, fine. What is it? So he said, a few months ago, anticipating what this was going to be this cycle, like last year was a huge jump from the year before, and this year was going to be even crazier. I just knew it. So there was a general understanding in our program of how big our NIL budget was. But what I really didn't tell anyone was I basically stored 10%, like, what players in our program or the agents, they might have thought the number was this, but it was actually about 10% more than it actually was, because, I thought we were going to do a really good job at retaining most everyone that we wanted to retain, get them at a price that we thought would be fair. And the coach actually said, like, I'm actually pretty comfortable with everything we did. I actually don't feel like we overpaid a single player, but he said, I did feel like there was a chance that I might have 1 or 2 guys get to me in the week 10 days before the portal closed, and be it on their own accord or after having been contacted by other people from other programs, say, hey, listen, can we, I might have to go in the portal. Like, is there any more money for me? And what the coach said was, like, I do have a limit, but there were a couple guys on my team where if they did, I did have an extra bit on the side that I was willing to renegotiate. The deal had already been, keep in mind, the deals had already been agreed to with these players. But then as the portal stuff went along, I think it was only one player on this particular team went back to this head coach, and I think it was with his parents, and said, can we get an extra X amount on top of it? He didn't tell me the number. It could have been 25,000. It could have been 100,000, whatever it was. And so this coach had that at the ready and handy, but he said, for this player, yes, but if it had been player DF, DEF, G,
right,
whatever, I wouldn't have done it. But like this guy, like, couldn't lose him. And so the portal stories have been very entertaining and intriguing. And just real quick as a tag to that, the coaches don't all think alike on this stuff. The way that they are handling their situations in their own programs, some coaches are extremely confident. Some coaches are extremely ticked off. Some coaches are extremely tired. Some coaches are extremely intrigued by what's going to be next here. Some are mentally in much better places than others. And it is interesting to hear from a variety of them. The portal's now closed. Thankfully, it's only a 30-day period. I'd argue it should be even less, but whatever. And so now we move on to who will commit where. We're probably about, I don't know, in terms of the high major stuff, like we feel like we're 65% or so through the high major commitment phase, and that'll obviously continue over the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh yeah, now they do the wait out the NBA draft cycle thing, see who comes back and all that, and that's always a really interesting time. Matt, who do you think has improved himself the most through this portal? Especially given that some teams had to do like what Arkansas did last year and start from, basically 2 or less players on the roster.
I think St. John's has done the best job. Now, St. John's was a team that was top 10-ish quality at the end of the season. It got booted before it wanted to, obviously, but considering everything that St. John's lost and everything that it brought in, I would put the Johnnies at the top. I mean, they have Ian Jackson, who might be one of the 5 best sophomores in the country next season. They have Isaiah Sellers, who your audience may not know who that is, but he was a solid 3-point shooter. They need more 3-point shooting. They got him from Stanford. Dylan Mitchell, people in your state are familiar with when he played at a different school previously. He might even be coming off the bench, which is wild. They retained Zuby Ejiofor. They got, there's another player that I'm blanking on. St. John's, though, to me, did the best job. Michigan would be pretty close behind. This is another team that was very good. And right now with Michigan, everything it's brought in, it's done a pretty solid job. I think Kentucky's done a pretty good job. I think Tennessee's done a good job. Now, Tennessee also added a high school prospect, Nate Ament, who very well could be a top 10 pick, 14 months from now. But it wasn't just that. They got Jacoby Gillespie from Maryland as well. Iowa, I thought, did well for itself. So those are some of the bigger ones that pop out to me most.
So last year, and the Big 12 with Houston Tech, obviously BYU, Arizona, Iowa State, Baylor, and Scott Drews had to completely revamp his roster and is not done. Are those teams, if I was to say of those 6 teams, all of them are back in the tournament next year, that would not be a surprise. If one doesn't get back, Matt, who might that be?
All right. Houston Tech, Arizona,
BYU. Iowa State, BYU, and Baylor.
Okay, so you didn't include Kansas in there, just to be clear.
Well, because I did not include Kansas. I had a follow-up on Kansas. I'm sorry.
Got it. No, you're good. You're good. All right, so I would say, back in the preseason, there were 2 teams I whiffed on big time, and by whiffing, I didn't have them in my preseason top 20.
Sure.
One of them was Auburn. Yikes. And the other one was Iowa State, which was also a miss, not as big of a miss as Auburn. Otzelberger's just done it's hard for me to see Iowa State slipping too far. I guess I would have to say Baylor. And the reason why is Baylor stands to it's going to have the most changeover. So therefore it's the most unpredictable. So that's something to keep in mind. Although Kevin Young did a good job in his first season. Man, oh man, getting Rob Wright. I know where I'm talking, but
that's okay.
AJ DeBanza might have just been given an absolute gift. Robert Wright just played with VJ Edgecombe, possible top 5 pick. Played with Cooper Flagg in high school, and now he's going to play with AJ DeBanza. Just a fascinating development for him, and he's also a really, really good player. That being said, we'll see. DeBanza's such a mega talent, and the whole way that your program operates changes in dramatic ways. I think they'll be fine, but Rutgers did just have 2 top 5 picks on its roster and became the first school ever to miss the tournament despite having 2 top NBA.
Craig, you brought that up earlier in the week, a couple of guys that don't get drafted. What has Kansas been doing that has allowed them to slip? Obviously a tough conference, but they don't seem like there's something missing.
You're talking just the past couple of years in general?
Yeah, because the standard we know is so high.
The standard is high. I wrote about this during the season. The standard is I just happen to think this is factual. I don't even think this is an opinion. Kansas, by virtue of winning the Big 12 regular season the way that it did for the overwhelming majority of Bill Self's career and getting 1s, 2s, and 3 seeds for almost every single, like the standard is literally different at Kansas than anywhere else. It has the longest NCAA tournament appearance streak in the history of the event. Like even Kentucky, Carolina, Duke, these schools have gone through like 1-year dips of not making the tournament. That has not happened at Kansas. Like Kansas coming off a 7 seed, 11-9 run in the Big 12. It is very much a swerve from what it's been. Reasons for it. To oversimplify it, I feel like this past season you had complacency in leadership positions on that roster, and at a certain point they were only going to hit a collective level, and Bill Self could only do so much to change that overall. A big roster overhaul, I think, will benefit Kansas in a major way. I don't think Kansas is probably going to be a preseason top 10 team, but that might benefit the program. It's coming off 2 consecutive seasons in which it was preseason number 1, and it continued the trend. Kansas has been number 1, I want to say 6 times now. It might be 5, but I think it's 6 times been a preseason number 1. Never in the same year has it been a preseason number 1 and made the Sweet 16. It's a wild jinx.
That's wild. That's a long trend with evidence right there.
You know, my wife is a Kansas super fan, and we were talking about it last night. And I was telling her about. I said, the most telling moment. Because you mentioned the complacency of leadership positions for me, and like when coaches get candid in a press conference, like it's rare, as you know. Like usually it's coach speak, and then you get these little moments. But when they had the long road trip that they stayed on the road out west, and he thought this is going to be where I can kind of, we can loosen up, we can be away, we can do some different things. He's like, I thought this was going to be good for us, and it was the exact opposite.
Yeah,
kind of showed you like, yeah, this team was, from that point on, Bill Self was just trying to pull every little bit of coaching, juice he had out of him. Would it surprise you if he is 1 or 2 years from moving to Florida and fishing every day?
No, it wouldn't surprise me. Now remember, there was. Oh man, there's just so much stuff that happens in the season. There was like that random 36-hour period where it got there was like 1 or 2 people that reported that Bill Self was not going to retire. I just didn't think that was in the air. However, if you told me that Bill Self was within 3 seasons of retirement, I would absolutely believe you. Just I refuse to be surprised by any coach with more than like 12 years of head coaching experience in Division I retiring. Like, wouldn't surprise me. Like if John Shire retired in a year, yes, that would be surprising.
Yeah,
that would
sure.
surprise everyone. Bill Self, no, wouldn't surprise me. But I am interested to see what Kansas. I mean, Darren Peterson, he is nasty. He's actually a player that our 247 Sports guys, which work in conjunction with us at CBS Sports, they have Peterson ahead of DeBansa in their final ranking. So they felt strong enough that he's been that good. And I wonder if Peterson, not just him, but mostly him, if he can be so dynamic, so good that it almost reinvigorates Self here. And what I think is fair to say now, he is in the winter of his career. Now, the winter might be in the first few weeks of it, but given how long he's been a coach, interested to see what happens there.
Texas Tech, Grant McCasland, another coach drew a limb, in what he's done. And they've played just like he's always been wherever he's been. They've had to deal with the portal. They've brought some in. They've lost some talent too. Your thoughts about where they are, and should they next year, if things continue, to beat somewhere in the top 10 in the preseason?
Yeah, they'll have a case for it, no doubt. I mean, bringing back Toppin, it'll probably be either Toppin, Purdue's Braden Smith, Cameron Boozer for preseason National Player of the Year. Probably one of those 3 that gets the honor, be it with the AP or us at CBS Sports or number of outlets.
Sure.
Stuff now. I think Texas Tech will be a preseason top 10 team. McCasland's done a really nice job. It's been impressive to see him take that job and keep Texas Tech like a program that matters nationally. Now, like Mark Adams had 1 year where he did a nice job, and then it kind of just really careened really quickly. And then it would have been understandable if McCasland in year 1 was just whatever. And then this year 2, which was this past year, if he got him to the tournament, was like a 9 seed. Hasn't been that. Texas Tech was a top 10 team in the metrics for the majority of the back half of last season as well. So yeah, he's done a really, really good job. And I don't expect Texas Tech to fall off much, if at all. I mean, Tech was really one collapse away from making the Final Four, period.
Mhm.
And I do expect that to be a top 4 program. I usually give myself safer parameters around this, but I think it'll be a top 4 program in the Big 12, definitely. And I think it will be a top 12 program, broadly speaking, next season in college hoops.
How much and how long can Houston keep knocking on the door before there's an emotional, like, wear and tear letdown? We know Kelvin Sampson's Hall of Fame. He's got a bunch of players back. He's also adding some to the mix. But my God, Matt, that was so close. And yet, sometimes it's hard to pick yourself back up off the floor, but he's a fighter.
Well, he is a fighter. He is not close to retirement. I mean, I was told that heading into the Final Four, and I think this only fuels him even more. Houston may well be the preseason number 1 team in the country next season. If it's not number 1, it will either be 2, 3, and I think no worse. I think 4 is the floor for the Cougars. Now, being a preseason top 4 team, top 2 team, guarantees nothing. But we see that the way that Kelvin Sampson has run that program and the fact that he has had now, let me just check right now. I'm checking KenPom as we speak. So Houston finished, this is absolutely wild, man. Houston finished 2nd at KenPom again. It has done that 4 years in a row. Finished number 2 at KenPom. There's only, I think, one other school, and it was Duke back late 90s, early 2000s. Only one other school ever has gone 4 consecutive seasons with top 2 finishes, and Duke might not have even done that specifically. So I bring that up to say little evidence that things will drop off there, and the Cougars should again be a major factor. And we wait and see if they're even done yet in terms of their gets or not. Their backcourt's pretty good. I'm waiting to see if they add another big before we get out of here.
A couple of more questions for Matt Norlander. Paul?
Matt, can Baylor overcome the loss of Rob Wright to really contend? They've gotten some nice pieces, but he was the guy they were going to build the offense through next year.
Yes, Scott's a good enough coach to do it. I think, and I haven't talked to Scott yet this offseason. I probably won't let him build a roster, figure it out, and then we'll catch up later in the offseason. But I think if there's a coach with the right disposition to gather himself, his staff, that program, and make sure that this doesn't have a significant drop off, I just think Scott is wired the right way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But will Baylor ultimately have a player as talented as Wright in the program? Probably not. Now, it's gotten some good gets so far. Like it's done well, but the fact that, and actually, I saw this out there. You guys can probably confirm this with me, but it's been so busy that I didn't check this. Is it actually true that every single scholarship player that was on Baylor's roster last season has left? Is that true?
Yes.
Well, Cameron Carr technically.
Well, he was a Tennessee transfer, but he didn't play.
He didn't play.
He was on the roster, but was not.
Okay, so
playing.
every scholarship player that played minutes last season for Baylor has left the program.
Gone.
Yep.
That's
Arkansas had that same situation with Calipari, and
it was coaching change, different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's my follow up to you, Matt. And my last question for you. Thank you for your time. You hear about the culture of joy, and we haven't been able to talk to Scott yet either. And he's kind of, I'm sure, just running around with the staff, and they're trying to do a great job to refill it. But they have this, what is a tremendous culture now in this day and age of NIL. Things change the portal. But that's like, why would they have to deal with that? Because you would think they're so tight knit.
Yeah, I don't know. Now, some of this is obviously, as you well know, it's a function of losing a number of seniors on the roster. So, like, there's only so much you can do when you had 5 seniors, 4 guys, 5 guys that had eligibility expire. But even still, and Scott also is a coach who, generally speaking, doesn't have, like, he likes to have play 7. Like, he doesn't like to play 10.
Absolutely.
So by pure nature of that as well, these are reasons why we found ourselves here. And Edgecombe was always going to be a one and done player. That was known from the get go there. But yeah, it is a very valid, real, and vexing question. Like, why is it Baylor? Why does a program 4 years removed from winning a national championship with a coach who is as well liked and enthusiastic as Scott Drew. Why was it Baylor that was the program that had to do this? Because you're right, we had it with Arkansas. We also had it a few years ago with LSU. Matt McMahon took over the job. He didn't have a player on his roster for like a 36-hour period or whatever. With coaching changes in the portal era, I get it, but with a Hall of Fame level coach, it is interesting, and maybe we have a really good story coming. Maybe we do. Maybe maybe by mid-January of 2026. We will see a Baylor team that's 14-4 or something, and has managed to come out the other side better for it. But it's a late career challenge that I don't think Drew ever expected to find himself in. And I want to be fair to the audience here. Like, Baylor could be good enough to rally and be the third best team in the Big 12, or maybe this will be like a lost year, and maybe Baylor will be the 12th best team in a 16-team Big 12. Like, I think all of those things are very much on the table.
Man, it's great to have you. You're doing a great job, Matt. Some of the guys in the chat room are also mentioning it's great to get you on. We appreciate your time. Have a great rest of your weekend.
All right. Shouts to Eagle. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Matt Norlander. God, it does seem like the weekend. Matt Norlander, CBS, with many things. We pretty much brought up all 7 of the Big 12 teams that made the tournament. Not much about Tommy Lloyd in Arizona. But everyone else, he mentioned Kevin Young, BYU, and all the others that have been had success this past year. Whether it was enough or not remains, of course, to be seen based on the fan base. So, top portal classes in college basketball. You asked him that, Paul. This is from theathletic.com. Michigan, Louisville, Kentucky. I don't know if you mentioned Louisville. Iowa, he did. Arkansas, Auburn, the losers, Memphis. I mean, with Haggerty alone, but also others.
But they just picked up Doug McDaniel today. I mean, I know that's not a net positive from Haggerty, but I still think
Haggerty, Therese Hunter, Danger, Colby Rogers, and Musa Cisse, they were the ones that they lost. Also, the ones who need to regroup. We mentioned Baylor, UAB, Georgia Tech, UCF, Arizona State as a combo buy. Again, that was one of the portal rankings of those who have either done well or need to get on the move. All right, when we come back, Craig is back. We'll talk with him. We also have a couple of other notes. The NFL draft tonight. A couple of interesting nuggets about which FBS program has the longest stretch of not having a first-round draft pick, and how many of those schools in the top 10 list of not having a first-round pick are from the Big 12. We appreciate your time. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Paul's Top 5 around the corner. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers, get it. Go online and get whatever pizza you want. Build your own pizza and enjoy. Marco's Pizza with 5 locations here in the Central Texas area. Fastest growing pizza brand in America. And if you want, maybe you're just like, man, I want to do something else, or you're somebody that is an entrepreneur, Marco's Pizza has franchises available for you. Go online, marcos.com, and there's a link you can click if you are interested in doing that. Bob Mock is the local owner here of the 5 locations in Belmead, China Springs, Hewitt, Woodway, and also in Robinson. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
To
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Check out the 365 Sports family of channels on YouTube.
Which of these schools with the longest drought without an NFL first-round pick will have their streak? Will they be deleted from this list? SMU.
No.
39 years.
Yeah, not this year.
And, of course, they had to go through the almost 2 or 3 decades since the late 80s. Indiana.
No.
31 years. Kansas.
No.
Vanderbilt.
No.
16 years. Virginia.
Nope.
15 years. Georgia Tech.
Nope.
Rutgers.
Nope.
14 years. Nebraska.
Not this year.
Hell no. Colorado, 13 years. They will. Travis Hunter will be most likely the second pick of the draft, and they might even get, well, wherever Shedeur ends up with 2 in the first round.
Yeah, I saw pictures of his whole setup. They definitely put the designer's brains together and poured a little money into him having a little home setup for his draft coverage tonight. So you'll see that. It's out there on the internet.
His own studio, so to speak, right?
It's like, I can't tell how he's going to use it, but it's it's kind of like a makeshift studio lounge kind of thing. And it's got, whatever that art style is where you just have a bunch of words, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's just like whatever's that's like sort of popular, I guess, or has been. So it's got a bunch of stuff like time, God's timing, like just kind of stuff like that. And, yeah, so he's got like a little lounge area that they've created for him to chill out however long it takes him tonight to get selected. So yeah, that streak will get smashed tonight.
You get yes, absolutely, like really off the top and nearly off the top. Syracuse, 11 years.
No.
Oklahoma State, 10.
No. Not
okay, so of all of these teams, only one, Colorado, will be able to take their name off of this list of the longest active droughts without an NFL first-round pick.
You want to see this? You want to see Shedeur setup?
Yeah, you got it. Very nice.
Yeah, there you go. All the hats that he can choose from. See, there's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Right there. So there's his little lounge area. And yeah, all the other stuff around that, I guess, for people to hang out, and his logo and everything else. So yeah,
there's that's one of the reasons why he's not going to be at the NFL draft. The other one is, I don't know, if just in case there is a drop, he's prepared. He's where he wants to be with who he wants to be with. Good for him.
Yeah, I'm just glad we're going to see in a few months whether he's legit or not. And it won't be a tale of how he plays as a rookie is the story of his entire career. But there are a lot of people that hate Shedeur Sanders. There are a lot of people that really don't like him. There's been all this draft rumor stuff that's flown out there, which, hey, that's not any different. Like, it's not like that's unique to simply him, but it does feel like we've heard far more of that around one guy than we've heard around most guys in similar positions. I mean, I logged on when I got back. First thing I see is like some Texas reporter who's dogging on Shedeur setup, and it's, oh wow, what a setup for a guy with 0 bowl wins and 500 record and no championships. And it's like, I get you're a Texas fan, so like all things Big 12, you're probably kind of biased to. And then there's people who just don't like Deion, and so they're probably sort of biased to that. And then if you're both, then man, I bet you really don't like Shedeur Sanders. But to act like they haven't done anything at Colorado is also disingenuous. Like, they were a bad, forgettable program, and in 2 years,
forgot they were even a program.
They have gone to winning, 8 games or 9 games this last season. And yeah, it didn't end well, but I don't know. You saw a lot of this early in the season as well, when the hot thing was to just dog on them kind of early on for how they finished the year prior. And there was a lot of knocks on Shedeur. So point being that the talk will continue, but it's put up or shut up time. So we'll see where he's going, and then we can watch next season and see if he's legit or not.
I don't understand like why people put it all on Shedeur.
Yeah,
like why they have it like. Okay,
I think because he leans so hard into the attention, though, like the draft setup, like I'm sure there'll be the podcast that, and so that kind of stuff, I think that he's a little bit more in control of or puts out there as opposed to maybe similar guys. Travis Hunter's, very active as well, but yeah, I know where you're saying, Paul.
I mean, like it's a weird reason.
He feeds it though. He does
feed it. Like, but it's a weird reason to say he's not a good football player.
Right. Yeah.
Look. You can tell if a guy's a good football player or not by results on the field. And if you look at it, they have been positive results. Now, were they good enough year one at Colorado to do anything? Were they a lot of sizzle and not as much steak? Yeah, but there was not sizzle or steak.
No.
Like before they got there.
It was dog food.
Easily the worst Power 5 roster that maybe had ever been constructed at Colorado for 2 seasons that they had. Yeah. It was that bad. And there were teams in division, like in the FCS that would have trounced them. Like if they played North Dakota State, they could have just can we buy your whole roster and bring them here? Because they would have won more games.
I got a question
for sure.
for you.
Yeah.
Was Jackson State better or worse after Shedeur was their quarterback? And I know that they had others that were added to it when Deion arrived.
I mean, they also had talents they wouldn't have had otherwise,
sure.
To be fair.
No question.
Yeah, Travis Hunter was not going to Jackson State unless there was that very one in a million scenarios where Deion Sanders became the head coach at Jackson State, and then all that came with that.
But they made the postseason. It's not like they haven't had a history before, but he had something to do with them being
nothing.
Better. Yeah,
they haven't done nothing, and it's almost made to be like, oh yeah, well that's whatever. You finished 500.
They only beat one good team, Nebraska, and 2 years ago, whatever.
So it's put up or shut up time in the NFL for Shedeur, and that's a journey that I'm going to be interested to see, as well as a lot of these other guys, whether it be a Travis Hunter and can he become the next big megastar, or if it's Abdul Carter or Ted McMillan, or I'm just excited it's here tonight. I don't want to see any more mock drafts. I don't want to see any more speculation on the top of the first round. Like, now we get to see it tonight, and that's what I am excited about. And this very well may be the best option of top end first round picks that the Big 12 sees for quite a while. I mean, in terms of Travis Hunter and Shedeur being probably top 5 at worst, you would think like top 10 guys, and then a Tedero McMillan, who's probably a first rounder, right? And then, beyond that, I don't know. Like, there might be years when they have 4 or 5 guys, but in terms of the attention being paid, like with those 3 in particular, it might be a while before we see that kind of attention.
I can see a scenario where they've got several quarterbacks in the next couple of years.
I was going to say, except for
that are first round picks,
yes.
like Sawyer Robertson, Josh Hoover, Levitt, like those guys could be Dampier. Like
that's the exception.
They could be that. I see some wide receiver scenarios that could play themselves out well. But as far as like when it comes to defensive players, cornerbacks, linebackers, defensive line, the other 2 conferences kind of have a lock on that right now. Mm-hmm. But that's not to say that there's somebody that we, see as a second or third round pick right now that hits their stride, in this year or whatever. But as far as the absolute, and again, it's the Heisman Trophy winner too, so we don't know who's going to be the Heisman Trophy winner in a year. But
you don't need to apologize. And I'm not. He played at Colorado.
It's a huge deal because who knows when you're going to get a Heisman Trophy winner again? It can come from anywhere, any year. And so you can go through droughts where you don't have a Heisman Trophy. The SEC has gone through several year droughts where none of those guys held the trophy.
Remember, Alabama never had one until Mark Ingram in what was that, 2009. Colorado has also been great for the Big 12. And no matter the first year when they slumped in the last half, they've been good for the conference. And obviously with the publicity that they've brought with Dion and Travis and Shador and others, and just the glitz and glamour. And last year they backed it up a little bit more. All right.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have any first-round picks if it wasn't for the Pac-12 move that you made last year.
Absolutely.
That gave you 3 first-round picks in this year's draft, whereas you would have had 0, although you didn't expect you'd have 0 because I'm sure there was a thought out there that Ollie Gordon would be a first-round pick at one point in time at least, and that's not the case at all anymore. And maybe the Arizona offensive lineman. Savanaya, maybe I'm blank, but even that's another guy that if he was talked about at least a little bit. I don't think he has been for quite some time, but that's another Arizona guy as well. So anyways, point being that I don't know how often you'll see maybe again 2 top 5 picks, but I do think that next year could be a possibility with the quarterbacks, like with the Sawyer Robertson, with the Sam Leavitt. That could be the next time. It might not be that far away, but certainly when you look at Arizona State winning the league, you look at Colorado winning a Heisman and bringing in the TV ratings they did, Arizona with Tetero McMillan going to be a first rounder tonight. Those schools have been carrying some weight here early on, so that's been good to see.
And look, here's another thing. I know this isn't as big of a deal, but I do think second and third round is going to be so full of Big 12 guys.
Yeah.
It's going to be very, very full of Big 12 guys.
Smith Snowden, Utah cornerback, is already getting a little bit of attention. I was looking at this list for next year. Howard Sampson, offensive tackle at Tech, somebody that's getting some possibility. Not saying first round. I'm not doing that, but given some of these players that are in the Big 12, and I don't have Kansas State's Dylan Edwards.
It's
running back.
It's just so hard, and I totally appreciate that feedback. Keep them coming. Names
Jordan
that we
Tyson.
need to know. Jordan Tyson, another one. It's just that where are they playing a year from now?
No, yeah.
I mean that's the thing is you used to be able to project this 4 years out and be like, hey man, that Arizona class could get 5. Well, now, how many of them are there in 4 years? You know what I mean? And so that's where it's hard to do that. But yeah, they're Jordan Tyson,
David Bailey at Tech.
There's some guys out there, but I think the quarterbacks could give you multiple first rounders if they all hit next year, or if most of them hit. But a unique situation that that's not completely unpredictable, because Travis Hunter was always projected to be a top type of draft pick. But just saying that those schools have come in and they've been positive additions. They've brought Heisman trophies and draft picks and, wins as well. So that's been good to see.
Paul, your family member who's playing at Cincinnati is probably a top 50 player, at least looking at the 2026 draft, in Dante Corleone. Caleb Lomu, the offensive tackle from Utah. And again, I'm just going down the list. This is just one of the outlets that's doing that. So I thought it would be pretty cool to name them. There's some that we didn't mention, as they haven't gone through the entire list of the top 100. Okay, Paul Catalina and his top 5.
Escape into fitness with the Schwinn IC4 bike, providing a premium, heart-pumping indoor cycling experience that combines digital connectivity with superior Schwinn quality. The IC4's smooth, quiet ride features magnetic resistance with 100 micro-adjustable resistance levels, an intuitive resistance knob, a beautiful backlit LCD display, adjustable race-style seat, dual-link pedals with toe cages, and a pair of 3-pound dumbbells with easy-reach cradles. Place your phone or tablet on the media rack and keep them charged with the IC4's convenient USB charging station. Extra-large dipped handlebars for premium grip, and dual water bottle holders for staying hydrated. The Schwinn IC4 comes with a slim, comfortable, Bluetooth-enabled heart rate armband that continuously monitors heart rate to help you stay within your target zone. But the best part about the IC4 is premium digital connectivity. Digitally immerse yourself in a world of virtual races, exotic locales, and stunning trails from around the globe. With connectivity to cycling and coaching apps like Peloton, Explore the World, and Zwift, with the Schwinn IC4 bike, you can ride with Peloton at a fraction of the price. Don't limit yourself to one digital experience. Pedal through dozens of scenic destinations, controlling your pace by speeding up or slowing down. Fitness was never meant to be put in a box, and neither were you. Escape the everyday with the Schwinn IC4 bike, your ticket to a life well lived.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 brought to you by Ticket Club. Forget the fees, just big savings. Click the link in the description to find out more.
Welcome in. It's the Top 5. Tonight is the first night of the NFL draft, and we have the 5 teams who really need to nail the first rounder. First up, number 5, the Tennessee Titans. Look, Cam Ward is going to be the pick. We know that. But they've got to make sure not only do they nail Cam Ward and make sure his career is as good as it can be, they don't have a lot of picks to support him in this draft. So that means trading back in round 2 and picking up another day 2 pick. That might be, not a bad idea. Also, make sure you build around him. The history of the NFL is littered with great quarterbacks from college who got to the NFL and were destroyed by poor management of the other guys around them. Don't let Cam Ward be that guy, but this is a team that's building a new stadium. They need excitement in that city. Excitement starts with the quarterback. Cam Ward needs to be the guy for them. Number 4, the New York Giants. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Since they won their last Super Bowl over a decade ago, the Giants have been a mess. Firing coaches, not being able to land on a quarterback, terrible drafts on the offensive and defensive lines. So this pick at number 3 or whenever they make it has to be one that builds around some intriguing talent they have, like Malik Neighbors. They've got to build around that. Is it Shadir Sanders? Is it getting that quarterback? Signing both Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston in the offseason leads me to believe that they are not totally all in on this rookie quarterback class, and they're okay for a bridge for a year or two to get them to the place that they want to be when there's a different quarterback class. So if it's not Shadir Sanders, if it's a trade back, if it's Travis Hunter, if it's somebody else, you got to make sure it helps propel you into the future and helps whoever the quarterback is going to be or makes the defense better. Something. Brian Daboll needs the front office to feed him something. Number 3, old Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. Let me just say this. They're very good at getting the first round pick right. They're not so good at the second round pick. They're great at the third round. mediocre in the fourth, and somehow between 5 and undrafted, pretty damn good. And that's Will Clay. Will Clay's unbelievable at that. But they really need to do something to excite the fan base here, because there has never been a time during Jerry's reign where fans are more out on the Cowboys than they are right now. He has got to do something to win them back. And this is a city that was just disappointed by having their big star basketball player traded. Jerry can do a lot to inspire confidence if he does it the right way, to help the fan base heal all the way around. The Luka trade has nothing to do with the NFL, except the fact that in Dallas, those fans are all hurting. They want to pick me up. Jerry's the one who can give it to them. Look, the Cowboys can do nothing to unseat themselves as the number one attraction in Dallas. They won't. Nothing could ever happen. Honestly, they could attack Canada by themselves for no reason, and they'd still be the most popular thing in Dallas. Jerry just needs to hit on this first-round pick and make sure it's something that helps Dak Prescott, who is on the backside of his career. And we already know how that's going. So he's got to nail this one really, really well. Number 2, the Las Vegas Raiders. Pete Carroll's in as the head coach. Geno Smith in as the quarterback. Unlikely to take a quarterback first. So how do you help Geno Smith? Is it Ashton Genty? Do you wait till later to get a running back? Do you get an offensive lineman to block in front of him? There are 0 positions that the Raiders could draft that wouldn't make sense. 0. Whoever the best player on the board is, that's who they need to take in every single round, because they have needs all over the field for Pete Carroll. But they really need to get the first rounder right, because, again, you've got a veteran quarterback. You're trying to win a little bit more right now with Geno Smith and build some momentum. You got to get him some help, and a lot of it. And finally, number 1, the Chicago Bears. You have Caleb Williams coming into year 2. You have Ben Johnson at the helm now, an offensive genius behind the quarterback of the future, of the present, of the now, whatever you want to say. Caleb Williams can be that guy. They've got him some wide receivers around him that can make plays. Do you go get Ashton Genty if he's there? Do you maybe reach a little bit more for that first-round running back like Omari and Hampton, because they did so in Detroit with Jahmyr Gibbs, and that worked out well for them? Do you get a tight end like Tyler Warren? Do you go defense and get a pass rusher? But whatever it is, you need to get those fans excited in year 1 of Ben Johnson and year 2 of Caleb Williams about what's going on. The Bears need to hit this one out of the park tonight in the first round of the NFL draft. That's going to do it for us. Enjoy the draft, everybody. See you later.
All right, it's like Craig said, it's going to be nice to put names with teams, and unlike the NBA draft, 30 minutes later, they've been traded 3 times. You'll know when, in fact, that occurs. Emery Winter working on 365 Sports tonight, the local CW. And there's Andrew, King Jiu-Jitsu. The poll, most underrated prospect, Cam Scattaboo. Just dominated everybody else with 70% of the vote. I just can't wait to see what happens with him and where he goes. 105 votes. Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for those of you who voted. And then another one. Which NFL team will make the boldest trade up in 2025? Well, the Giants are what? What, number 4?
They're at 3. But also, here's the thing: a bold trade up could be drafting somebody at 3, like Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, and then drafting back into the first, trading back up in
to get a quarterback
to the first round to get a quarterback. If it's the Cowboys,
look at the face. Jerry is so thrilled.
Have no idea. If the Cowboys decide, because we talked about this with Machota yesterday, if the Cowboys decide to trade up and get somebody like Genty or Hunter or that, I'll pass out. Like, you'll try to text me and you won't hear anything because Amanda will be putting cold water
she'll call
on
me and go, hey, call 911.
So he passed out. Yeah. He passed out. It was of joy.
And then there's also, just because the Cowboys, people want to see that happen too. Most of you in the chat when we were talking to Brian Broaddus were just scared to death of what they might do tonight. Thank you, Andrew, very much for that. And thanks to Garrett Ross for running today, as always, the mothership, our sponsors. Those of you who watch us on Twitter at 365 Sports YT and on YT, and also, of course, on YouTube. We do appreciate it. Tim Brando tomorrow. Mickey Spagnola will have evidence on what the Cowboys did one way or the other. He'll join us tomorrow, and a few other guests, of course, talking college football. Craig, thank you very much. Paul Catalina, thank you very much. And thank you. Please hit the like and subscribe if you haven't done it. Spread the word. Back tomorrow at 3. I'm David Smoak. Have a great NFL draft, and we'll see you tomorrow at 3.